And we are live. Chris Moeller, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going well. How you doing?
I'm doing good now that we're here. We got the technical difficulties out of the way and ready to have a conversation here. First of all, thank you for being on here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. I've always been a fan.
Thank you. Yeah, I definitely pride myself on telling people about when you came up to me at Swamp Fest. It's like my favorite thing to talk about.
Yeah, well, there's not a lot of BMX media these days, and I always felt like you would cover topics. So sometimes when something would happen, you were the first person to actually report on it in a real professional way. And I always wondered why more people weren't doing that, and that's kind of how I became a fan.
Well, I appreciate it. It's for me, it's all just the love of doing it and talking about it, informing people, and like revolving my life around BMX as much as humanly possible.
Yeah, wow, I feel that.
Yeah, well, you probably more than most people can. And it's funny the timing on this because the Our BMX Unclicked 2.0 with you came out on Tuesday, and I thought a great place to start our conversation today might be in that if there's anything that has come up or you thought about since doing that, that you're like, oh, we should have talked about that, or oh, response to this, or anything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I went back and watched that thing, which I never intend to do, but I've only done a few things like that over the years, and I end up going back and either watching little pieces of them or watching the whole thing. In this case, I watched little pieces and then realized I'll just watch the whole thing. There's a lot of topics we got into on that, and even the first one I did with those guys. It's unfortunate that they don't really get fully developed. I feel like sometimes I've got something in my head, they've got something they're thinking about, and we just can't necessarily get on the same wavelength. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we'll get into a really good topic, but I don't feel like it gets fully developed, and sometimes it kind of comes off wrong, or I'm not really listening to them, or they may not really be listening to me that closely. We're kind of just having our own conversations, and that's the one big takeaway for me. I always think those things are awful when I'm done doing them, and then I don't know, people seem to like them, so that's good. But I'm always a pretty big critic of them, to be honest.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's how you get better at things. And I could see where that comes from, and just like having three people there, you've got three different thought processes, and when one subject comes up, it brings up something else, and then maybe one person's not done with their thought yet, and another thing happens, and it just goes on this crazy windy road of conversation.
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah, so I mean, it's understandable, but was there anything like specific, like subject wise, that was, do you feel like you want to talk more about since then?
Well, for me, a lot of it was business related, just because the BMX industry is really tough right now. I feel like for most brands, it's tough at the bike shop level. Um, so that was a lot of what was on my mind, and it was interesting. It kind of led into that Trek store thing,
Mm-hmm.
and out of everything that we talked about, that's actually what I've gotten the most comments about, um, from the list from the viewers, is people talking about their local bike shop turning into a Trek shop, and now they don't have a BMX shop, within 50 miles of their house.
Yeah, that's wild. I've definitely heard about Trek doing that. I didn't realize it was so widespread.
Yeah, I think it is. I hear about it from our sales reps at S&M and Fit, and they always ask me to try and do something about it. I haven't. Um, but, I guess at one point Trek had Miraco. That was their BMX brand. And, geez, even back in the 90s, they had their own BMX bikes. Remember Stricker rode for Trek?
Yeah, I remember hearing Trek as a BMX brand.
Yeah, I mean, Stricker got on the cover of Dig when he was riding for Trek. I think they did Gary Fisher BMX bikes. That one might have also been Trek, but So anyway, what we never got into on the hour thing was the bicycle industry as a whole seems like it's almost trying to get rid of BMX.
You think so?
I mean, that's the feeling I get with companies like Trek not even having BMX bikes.
Yeah.
That's odd. You got this big push on the the uh, the little electric bikes, the Stasics.
Oh yeah, I've seen those.
Kids starting on the Stasics. You've got the electric kind of dirt bike looking mountain bike things. The guys are showing up at the trails on,
I've seen that drama. Yeah.
and then you've got more and more of this kind of suspension type, even the fingers crossed style bike,
Mm-hmm.
which is more or less a dirt jump mountain bike. And yeah, I don't know. I don't want to be a conspiracy theorist, but it feels like maybe the BMX part of the industry is sort of on its own little island and isn't really part of the bigger cycling picture.
I mean, it kind of makes sense, and if you think about it from the outside perspective, like a BMX bike, when you look at it as a non-BMX rider, looks like a kid's bike that you wouldn't necessarily think an adult is going to be riding.
Right.
So it
Yeah,
makes
I mean,
sense.
I'm in a small town here. I've got that spot up and running that you saw in the
Mm-hmm.
Colorado vacation video. There's not one person in this whole town that rides a BMX bike on those jumps except me.
Really? So it's all DJs and like full
But there's a few
suspension?
kids. Yeah, there's kids on DJs. There's older guys on more enduro style full suspension bikes that want to come down and ride the pump portion of it. But yeah, there's not one person in this town that can ride those jumps on a BMX bike. There's a few kids in town that ride the skate park on complete BMX bikes, but
Hmm.
they're not taking it, to the next level and hitting the jump. So it's odd. And then the kids that do have BMX bikes here, the bikes are just falling apart.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix them. There's a lot of just situations I think going on with BMX right now that are a little disturbing to me.
Well, it's interesting to think about too in the dirt jumping side of things because there's a bike that is literally named for dirt jumping. It's a dirt jumper. So maybe it's the same thing of perception of people see dirt jumps and they're like, oh, this is the dirt jumper where you
Right.
take that bike, not a BMX bike.
Right. I mean, it's a BMX bike should be called a dirt jumper.
Yeah. I mean, it's everything race, park, vert, flatland. Like, you can do it all on that.
Right. But it is weird that that bike is called it's a 26-inch wheel. I mean, yeah, I don't know if I'd call that a dirt jumper necessarily. I mean, I would rather ride a 20-inch bike at the trails than a 26-inch bike. I'd get on the 26-inch bike and your butt hits the tire when you try and tuck.
Yeah.
Uh, you've got that kind of funky suspension feel every time you're coming up the lip. I've ridden those bikes and I prefer riding a 20-inch bike at the trails for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I've ridden dirt jumpers at our trails too, and there's no doubt that they are easier to get through jumps on,
Yeah.
which probably lends to it at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. They are easier to get over the jumps, but I like the feel of a 20-inch bike a lot better. But, again, I feel like there's just a lot of things pointing towards getting younger and younger riders on bigger bikes and just either starting them small on some kind of like the Stasic bike and then moving them onto a dirt bike, or starting them on the Stasic and then just moving them right into like a 26-inch dirt jumper.
Hmm.
There's not a lot of industry support. I don't feel like for BMX, all the brands are small. They're like S&M and Fit and Kink, and you know, these are tiny, tiny companies.
Yeah.
Even
Somebody,
Haro at this point, I mean, it's kind of small.
yeah. And BMX is a very small portion of what GT does.
Yeah, exactly. And Trek doesn't have bikes, Specialized doesn't have bikes. I mean, I guess what it tells me is either the numbers aren't there sales wise for these big companies to get involved with it, or they'd just rather get rid of it.
Yeah, well, somebody in the chat did bring up a good point here. I don't know if this is true or not, but he said, it was my buddy Kurt Rowell. He lives out in Washington. He said, but didn't everyone want those large companies to stop making BMX and have the rider owned companies only among BMX stuff?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great point. Like, I think BMX just likes to basically kill itself.
There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and I guess that's just maybe that's what we're doing. Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, as far as like things we talked about on Hour that I didn't feel like got fully developed, I've kind of felt like that whole concept didn't really get fully developed. It kind of turned into talking about bike shops carrying weird brands. But the more I thought about it after I was on there, and the more I heard from other people, a bigger part of the problem seems to be brands that just sell direct, go completely around the bike shop, and there's quite a few of those brands, or even some of the mail order companies having their own brands and then just pushing those bikes. So it's just a free for all.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, at a certain point in that, I think I remember Fudger asking the question of like, at what point does everybody just go around the bike shop?
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. I'm not trying to quote
Right.
him out of context, but there was something like that, and it's a question that's going to be asked as costs rise.
Right. And that maybe that would work if riders knew how to work on their bikes. But that's another
Right.
thing that I think is a huge topic these days, is that these guys just cannot work on their bikes.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation before too about like if bike shops went away completely tomorrow, I think bike shops would end up existing again in 6 months for all of the people who can't and don't want to or won't work on their bike.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Someone was just pointing out to me the other day, if you look on, OfferUp or Facebook Marketplace, you'll see a lot of bikes on there that are being sold fairly cheaply because the wheel is broken. That's what it says. The wheel is broken.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a flat tire.
Yeah. Yeah, and after watching that live stream, you guys talked about Elite a lot, but Framed is another brand that is
But
similar.
that's one particular retailer having their own brand. But you're right. That's the kind of thing I completely spaced on until after I was done, over there.
Well, the thing I was going to bring up with that, and it was ads on Facebook. Hopefully I could get one to show up here real quick. But it was something along the lines of like BMX made cheaper or like less expensive
Right.
BMX or something along those lines. And it was just reading that, and then you see people that you have no idea, they don't have riders, all of that stuff, and it kind of blew my mind to see that even exists. But people are commenting on it saying, oh, I'm going to buy my second or third framed, I've had two of them so far and they're great. And these like moms commenting on there saying how happy they are about it, and I didn't understand it. Is there like a miscommunication or disconnect between normal people and BMX bikes that they're buying for their kids?
Yeah, it's a great point. And that's where I think, again, like my take on all that got a little misconstrued too, or I just didn't do a very good job of expressing it clearly. But you've got brands out there that are promoting the whole sport of BMX, the whole lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Colorado video, we got
Yep.
a spot, we got people there, we're camping, we're having a party. It's not a money making venture. It's just a lifestyle thing.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of brands doing that kind of stuff, events like Swamp Fest or Texas Toast back in the day, those kinds of events. And then you've got these other people that just kind of pop in there with a bike that's cheaper and pretty good. I mean, good enough, and it's cheaper. And that's my point. Like, I'm not trying to say that I don't enjoy sponsoring riders or anything like that, or I'm trying to get rid of it. All I'm trying to say is, as a brand, we're competing with other people that more or less just pop in and poach sales that are created by brands that are putting a lot of heart and soul into things like this, podcast. Um, and that's what kind of gets on my nerves.
Yeah, it's a totally understandable perspective, and I think that it's the perfect example of how people get mad about, they say larger companies are coming in and trying to make money using BMX. I'm like, don't get mad at those people because they're creating opportunity for riders by doing that. Get mad at the people who are coming in having nothing to do with riders selling BMX bikes cheaper than other companies because they don't have this overhead and they're selling directly to people, and that's like the exact thing people should be mad about.
Yeah. Well, that's just kind of what has been under my skin lately is that I realize there's a backup of bikes in bike shops, uh, and that's understandable because business just has its ups and downs. But what bugs me is that a lot of the bikes that are in there are these off-branded bikes from companies that don't support the sport, and then the shop can't purchase from its regular supplier, whether it's Sabrosa or uh, Fit, something like that. They can't buy those bikes because they need to get rid of all these bikes that they bought first.
Yeah.
And then, like you bring up the framed thing, whenever a retailer has their own brand, you always have to wonder if they're kind of using the other brands to make the customer hit them up. And then, regardless of what inventory they have from the other brands that the guys are asking for, they surely have they have BMX bikes.
Mm-hmm.
Take a look at this one.
Yeah. What's the exact story you brought up of the shop guy saying, "Well, BMX bikes don't sell, but I only have one BMX bike on the floor." Like,
Yeah.
obviously. Yeah. And I don't know. Like, how do we fix that? I think it's a
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we can fix it, or if we probably just need to stop contributing to the problem, because in my opinion the problem there is when things are booming and these 20-inch bikes, like take a Fit bike, is flying off the shelves. Every shop in the world's hitting us up and wants to get them in their store. And then the bigger stores that are kind of like these corporate stores, they take 30 pieces, 50 pieces, and they become sort of the big dealer in the area. You might have a core shop a few miles away, but you don't open up the core shop because the big shop's doing the dollars and they have the territory. But then when things start to flip and the gravy train is over and you actually have to sell the bike, it doesn't just
Mm-hmm.
sell itself as easily. Now you really want to be back in the core shop, because they're the ones that are supporting the sport
Yeah.
and the whole lifestyle. So I think we just all need to do a better job of kind of vetting who it is that we're dealing with, and not just taking these big orders when things are hot. And that's kind of the problem, in my mind. I mean, that's something I can do to kind of help out, is to deal more exclusively with shops that know what's going on and that actually know how to fix these bikes, work on these bikes, give kids advice, and support events, and do things that are more grassroots, rather than just going for the big numbers when some chain store wants to buy 30 bikes. Because then when things go bad, the guy doesn't want to build up the bike, and then you think, well, why did I even sell to this guy? Well, you sold to him because he wanted to buy 30 bikes.
Yeah. Do you think also maybe bringing back some of the shop stop type stuff to where you connect the people in the shop with the culture and the riders and the team managers and stuff? I think COVID kind of killed a little bit of that. And
Yeah, no, I think that's awesome. That's kind of that's what we're doing this weekend on the 3rd, when the Built Different S&M video comes out. We're trying to get that link to as many shops as we can, and then have them have their own little local premieres. And we're not getting a lot because we kind of threw this on them at the last minute, but you've got shops like Powers that are always going to jump on stuff like this.
yeah.
And he's going to have a premiere. Maybe 20, 30 kids are going to show up, and he's got a big screen, and they're going to watch the new S&M full length.
Yep.
That's what we need to be doing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know if getting people physically out to travel to these shops and make it known that they're going to be there, so that the people who are local to that go to the shop where maybe they didn't go to it before because, oh, I'll just buy it online, or, oh, they don't want to build up the BMX bike because they don't care. Maybe it gives everyone a reason to care a little bit more.
Yeah. No, I love those in-shop events like that. I think all the brands could be doing more of those. And I know, we're all kind of trying to do that as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
Have little jams and, things at the wheel mill, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, those are great events. Did you ever go to the dealer night we used to have at Ray's?
I went to the one that Blackout Distribution would always have. They call it like Kink Night or whatever.
I think we might have done it before they did it, and then they kind of got in on our party on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I went to the Kink thing. I don't remember. It must have been before I was really paying attention that you guys were doing those, but those are amazing. So many people show up, and everybody's stoked to go and ride with the pros and people from the company that come out.
Yeah, we had Mike McHugh was one of our sales reps back then. So this is probably 90s, early 2000s, something like that. Mike was from Toledo, and he would go to Ray's, and he's the one that set it up because he did the Midwestern territory. All the shops in the Midwest were his. And he set up this dealer night, and we would do it. We did it probably 3 or 4 years in a row. And it was a wintertime thing. Yeah. Shops would come out. We'd get pizzas, drinks, the whole thing. Then everybody would just ride for free. And I went to a couple of those. Those were awesome.
Yeah, I mean, indoor parks are far apart these days, and gas is expensive. So it's understandable that it makes it harder to do those kinds of things. But for the communities where they do happen, it is a huge deal to the kids and everybody.
Well, that welcome jam at Wheel Mill, that thing seems really good.
Oh, it's amazing. It's such a great time. I had to miss last year's, but I always love going to that jam.
Yeah, so we support that as much as we can. And, I think we're on the right track with stuff like that. Like I said in the Hour BMX thing, I mean, this is just a tough time, and it's going to be hard for everyone to get through it. But I mean, we're gonna get through it. There's going to be some ruffled feathers, I'm sure, and hard decisions have to get made. But I mean, that's one of those things you asked what I wish we would have talked about a little more at the end of that Hour thing. You could tell Fudger was kind of saying that it was tough for him too, and that advertisers were his livelihood, and he was hoping they wouldn't pull out. And I just I just sort of blew him off and just kept ranting about whatever I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
Which was totally unrelated. It made zero sense. But looking back on it, I should have been listening to Fudger, and we should have been talking about that, because I know how he feels. That business has been really tough since Ride kind of, folded. Then he started Hour. He had partners, and I mean, he's more or less a one-man show now.
Yeah.
And he doesn't want to talk about the business. He wants to talk about the bar spin. But I felt like saying, or later after I watched this, man, you better learn to think about the business side of it, or you're not going to be in business.
Yeah.
And I think that's the key, is like, we've got to be able to separate the business of BMX from BMX.
Absolutely.
And that, luckily, I've been able to do that because I've been doing this my whole life. And when I get off work and I go to ride, I just shut it off. Because if you don't shut off that part of it, you're going to quit riding, and you're just going to be angry all the time.
Yeah, and we see that.
Yeah, but it's the business of BMX. It's not riding that's making you angry. It's the business of BMX that's making you angry. And then the other thing I thought about Fudger that I wish I would have thought about at the time was, companies are struggling. They've got a lot of inventory.
Mm-hmm.
Sales are down. What sales you are making right now are discounted. So it's a great time to be a rider. You can pretty much offer, make an offer.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, before you called me, I was in our software marking seats down.
Yeah.
So you can get a seat real cheap. You can probably get everything real cheap right now. So that's good for riders. But what I wish I would have mentioned to Fudger was, brands have a lot of inventory. what sales they are making, they're making them because things are discounted. Really, something like our BMX should be a platform where companies with a ton of inventory would go and spend some money with our to get that information out. In other words, when
Yeah.
sales are down and things are tough, you actually don't need to be cutting advertising. You need to be increasing advertising. The problem is that the companies aren't confident that increasing advertising is going to help with sales.
Yeah.
So he needs to have a better sales pitch to people like me to get me to spend more money with our BMX to help us move some merchandise. But again, like back to the point of BMX always killing itself, I mean, it's just uncool, I guess, to try and move product.
Yeah, it's tough. I really, I mean, this is something I think about constantly because I've tried to think about how, I mean, the conversation you guys had about riders' pay being based on what they're actually doing in videos and posts and all of those things. I think that that is something you integrate into this at the same time too, because I feel like a lot of riders who ride for companies will share something that a company posts, but they don't necessarily go out of their way to like really inform people about things. So that's kind of what I try to do with everything I'm doing is like I'm trying to have that value there where you can funnel people to the things that they need to see, but also, you know, have like do it in a cool way, I guess.
Yeah. No, I came off in that hour thing kind of hard on riders, but and some of that I think needs to be said, but the whole process needs to be done differently. If the process is done properly, the rider works with the company to make a product that they actually use and believe in.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, they can promote it honestly and authentically because they help develop it and they love it,
Yep.
and then it all makes sense and it feels organic. And that's how I am with S&M and Fit. I believe in everything that we're making. I love the stuff, so I'm constantly trying to promote it, and I'm not ashamed to just, uh, promote a ledge wax that's a candle.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's ledge wax and it's a freaking candle.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm right there with you, man. And
But you have to believe in it, and in order to believe in it, you have to, honestly like it, and being part of developing it helps too. So sometimes, man, you just knock it out of the park, Hoder,
mm-hmm.
BTM stuff, Reynolds, the Credence stuff. I mean, sometimes you just knock it out of the park with dudes because you're doing
Mm-hmm.
it all right from the get-go.
Yeah, well, and the other aspect of people riders sharing things too is that you notice the trend of every single thing that a company makes that a rider rides for is the best thing ever. They make the best frames ever. They make the best pedals ever. Whatever it might be, it's the best ever. And it's like that is a very superficial way of trying to get people to buy stuff.
Yeah. I mean, is that believable?
I don't think so.
Yeah. No, I know it needs to be a little bit more authentic than that, I think. But is it such a bad thing for a rider to put the companies that support them, put their company name in their Instagram bio? Is that such a bad thing?
No, I don't think so. That's like
But
the
people have told me that that's a bad thing. In fact, somebody told me it was jockey.
that's the bare minimum.
Well, but I was told that was jockey.
Oh God, man.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I come from a different, era, but like if someone's helping me do what I love, which is ride my bike and travel and hang out with my friends and eat, keep a roof over my head, I'm gonna do whatever I can to
Right.
support them. Honestly, I mean, I'm not just gonna. I'm not gonna. Maybe they make a, a frame out of bamboo. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, whatever. I'll try and ride it. I'm gonna snap it, and I'm gonna tell them, hey, we need to make a better frame. But even when I'm on the bamboo frame, the company name is gonna be in my bio. But I am gonna be working on a frame that's made out of a better material.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Maybe I just come from a different era. The guys I came up with I mean, we were struggling to split up $500 a month in rent.
Yeah.
You know, I was in a house full of BMXers, guys like, Alan Foster, Brian Foster, Todd Lyons. These were all up and coming pro riders that were struggling to make ends meet, and we'd already seen the big time pros make tons of money and spend it on, Porsches and $500 sunglasses and just a bunch of weird crap, and we weren't about to do it.
Yeah. There's a couple people saying stuff like effort is frowned upon, and put effort into the people that want to put on the effort. The rest can pay for parts or start something for themselves. It's a great point, and there was something I did want to bring up to you in this conversation I think relates perfectly to this. You talked about that whole, paying riders for based on what they're doing thing. I've been talking for a long time now about the affiliate marketing side of things, where maybe a rider who is on the pro team, yeah, they get their base level pay, the couple hundred, $500 a month, whatever it is, and then they get a code for people who sell direct, and whatever they sell with that code, they get a commission off of that each month. And then even flow riders can get commission, but they don't get base pay. And I've always felt like this is a way that you can actually measure what a rider is bringing in, like dollars wise, rather than videos and things.
I might have had that conversation today with somebody.
That's funny.
No, you're so on track with that, because we all have to help sell product to keep doing what we are doing, what we love doing. I mean, we don't sell content. We don't get any kind of rev share from YouTube because we use unlicensed music.
Yeah.
Get any kind of real bonus money as a company, again, because we use unlicensed music. So none of that is bringing in any money. And the only income we have, we don't have finger bikes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
DVDs don't bring in any money. The only revenue we have is selling bike parts and soft goods, and soft goods don't really sell like they used to.
Yeah.
So it's just bike parts. And I had heard that the Etnies skate program did a code like that years ago, and they gave it to all their riders. And at the time, I think Scheckler was their main guy, and the numbers came back, and it was just like astounding how much product Scheckler sold with that code compared to all the other guys.
Yeah, and the whole concept behind that in my mind is like I had never thought about what you talked about with that setup of doing things, but I thought, man, if you could combine both of those, and then you give riders an incentive to sell product, which is their job, you give the company a way to measure who's doing what, and maybe this person's killing it, but they're on the flow team and they do well over a period of time. It's like, wow, maybe we should consider moving them up because they're really doing their job. And I don't know, what I was going to ask you is like, is there a way other than videos to measure what a rider is doing for like S&M?
It's really a tough question, and honestly, I look at their social media profile, I look at their followers, but a lot more of it's sort of their engagement rather than just their followers. I mean, you could have gotten into, say, Instagram early, and you could have a ton of followers. How many of them are fake? Are you even interacting with these people? Or how many of them are bike riders?
Yeah.
It's so difficult to really tell. I think if you're out there, in the world, you can kind of feel what's happening, like which riders are really moving the needle, kind of like I always say, making the phone ring. But again, I mean, it's even weirder than that, because some riders, this isn't their motivation. Like, this is how we talk, because we're in this business. I'm in this business, so I talk like this. But some people just love riding their bike.
Yeah.
I always think about Jordan Hango.
Yeah.
When these topics come up, because Jordan Hango doesn't care about the business of bike riding. He just loves bike riding.
Yeah.
And he is so damn good. And I know he wants to help me and he wants to help Fit, but it's not really his deal. He does heating and air. and
Mm-hmm.
he's married and has a kid and he rips on a bike and we're huge fans of his and I know he wants to help us, but he's not about to start, inundating Instagram with clips.
Right.
He goes out and does shit that's better than everybody else and doesn't even film it and always has.
Yeah.
So, and we want to get behind that. So it's not really cut and dry when it comes to either produce or lose your job. Like
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of rider either necessarily. I mean, I I was trying to make some money because I need to pay my rent and put gas in my car.
Mm-hmm.
But most of the stuff I did throughout the years, I never filmed. I never took photos of. It was really a lot of it was at 2 a.m. with me and my drunk friends. We'd go out and ride, and that's what we loved to do. We weren't really thinking about, were we doing our job?
Right.
But it's complicated. But for me, it doesn't matter if I'm thinking about doing my job or not. I come back to my apartment in 1990 and I've got 30 frames in my garage and I'm calling the bike shops and they're telling me BMX is dead. I mean, dead.
Mm-hmm.
So we would, fake them out and have other people call them and ask them for S&M frames and then call them and try and sell them a frame, do all those tricks we always talk about. But I had to sell this stuff. Like if I didn't sell it, I didn't have any money. I couldn't survive.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm on a different end of it. For me, it was like part desperation all these years. So just a constant paranoia of being broke and not being able to survive. So I'm just coming at it from like a totally different angle. And I need to get my head around the fact that not all riders, some riders just love riding. They love going on trips. They love filming and they love seeing the end result, which is the edit, the video, the full length, whatever it is. But man, that shit ain't cheap.
Yeah, it's a balance. I mean, and like you said in the other thing, like you aren't necessarily thinking about the return a rider's going to bring in when you choose to hook them up. And I think there's that balance there that's hard to find, but we live in a world where it has to exist anymore.
Well, I mean, for me, for a long time, probably since, the early 2000s, I don't know, 2004, we started doing fit complete bikes. I mean, the complete bikes have just sold so well worldwide. A lot of it hasn't even been in the States. It's been in Australia, it's been in Europe, it's been in Canada, just thousands upon thousands of bikes, every quarter going to these countries. That's all done.
Yeah.
So we've all been running around on S&M and Fit, filming, having fun, getting hotels, putting gas in the van, thanks to a bunch of bikes that have been selling in Europe and Australia and Canada. Well, those bikes don't sell anymore.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of like what's happened? No people here maybe don't even see it, but that's kind of like, that's one big part of what's happened. So it's just a slap in the face. And, maybe it's shocking for people that aren't involved in the business end of it, but there's things that go on with currency, inflation in different countries. A lot of things affect this kind of stuff, and then it trickles down and affects us all on a real sort of a level that hits close to home. Like, oh yeah, there's no money to send you on the road anymore.
Right.
Because that was coming from complete bikes that were selling in Australia.
Yeah, and that's part of where my whole affiliate idea comes from too, and just that it's something that doesn't really exist right now. So if people kind of work towards that, it gives almost a whole new avenue of like all these people who could help the brand and help themselves at the same time,
Yeah, no, I think it's a great idea. I think some riders would love it. I think some riders wouldn't be interested in it.
Yeah, which, like you said, with your concept of being paid based on what you do, is like, well, you don't have to do this. You just aren't going to get paid for it because you just didn't do it.
Yeah, but I mean, I've got a lot of friends in the industry, and someone hit me up the other day and said, "Hey, I listened to the interview, and I thought it was really interesting about trying to incentivize riders instead of just giving them, guaranteed money." And this person told me they did that to 2 people recently, and they both said fine, and neither one of them have done anything.
Yeah.
I mean, some people don't even submit. Like Odyssey, for instance, has a pretty good bonus, plan for riders. And I talk to them pretty regularly about riders that don't even submit this stuff at all.
It's crazy.
Like they're doing it. The riders are doing it and they just don't submit it.
Yeah, it's like a culture shift that's going to end up happening because we're at a time where some of those paychecks are going to start getting cut.
Yeah, no, they are. It's unfortunate, or I like the idea of giving people an opportunity, but it scares me if, like I said, I've talked to a few people recently that have done this and it hasn't worked out. In other words, the riders haven't taken advantage of the new setup.
Yeah, and I think
Which,
it's
I mean, why that to me, that's insanity.
well, I think what it's going to take is somebody who's got a huge name doing it and making it acceptable, and then people start doing it because they realize, oh, I'm okay to do this. It's not
Yeah, but
uncool.
I mean, I'm not even sure if I was a pro rider, if I would believe or trust anybody that told me that. It's like, say you talk to a guy and he tells you, oh man, that shit's lame. He's probably doing it.
Yeah, right. Like he's making that money from it.
He's
Yeah.
probably doing it and then telling you it's lame.
Yeah, I mean,
Who knows? I don't know. I don't trust anybody when it comes to stuff like this. You got to do what's right for you.
right. And yeah, the way I
Gives a
see it.
shit what, someone else is doing.
Yep. I mean, you got to eat. You got to pay your bills.
I mean, I don't know what people got going on. Maybe they're independently wealthy. They've got trust funds. I don't know what's going on out there. I know when I was like 18, I was broke as shit.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I don't know. I think the most important part of all of this though is just having the conversations like that people can hear and just think about things that they might not have thought about otherwise.
Yeah.
And that's how you move forward.
Yeah, I don't want people to think I'm that one dimensional, that it's just all, you're a writer, it's a job, you're getting paid, do your job. I understand for some people it's more personal.
Yeah.
Like you can't put your version of writing on anybody else because it means something totally different to everybody. For some people it's expression, some people it's for the money. I've never really spent much time around people that ride purely for the money. I more or less have always hung around people that love to ride but need the money.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we're not riding for money, because if all we wanted to do was make money, we'd be building houses or we would be in other
Doctors.
industries. We would not be in the BMX industry, because we all work hard and we do a good job at whatever it is that we do, and we could make money doing anything, but we love riding. So now we're trying to mix something we love doing and making it a job, and it just gets messy.
Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough.
But if people have these conversations, you can pull it off. I truly believe people can pull it off. They just
Hmm.
need to have the conversation. And sometimes that's the hardest part, is just breaking the ice and having that conversation. We're in such a, sometimes I find out what's going on with the riders I sponsor on Instagram. I can't tell you how many people, over the years, nowadays quit, on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's the
Wow.
first I
Without
see of it.
that's wild.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe no one, people don't call each other on the phone anymore, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely easier to type something than it is to pick up the phone and say it out loud. That's for sure.
Right. So I don't know. I like I said, you go back and watch some interview that you do, and you just kind of feel like a lot of topics got cut short. Maybe you weren't able to fully develop the idea. But I thought I just feel like I came off sounding like, we don't need writers. And that's not true at all. Because our fans, the fans of the brand, love the writers.
Mm-hmm.
Even the past and present, writers, the fans of S&M, the fans of Fit, they love the writers. And that's a big part of why they like the brand. So I'm not saying that we don't need the writers. What I'm saying is we would prefer to have writers that we really were stoked on, and that were like genuinely stoked on us. That's really what I'm trying to say. Like, it's teamwork.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think if anybody does think that you're one dimensional in that way, I think they're the ones that might be out of touch. But it also blows my mind to think about how, what's the word I want to use? Like how stoked or how far behind someone will get, like a company like Framed or another company that doesn't have any riders, when they're like, I don't understand where that connection comes from. What is your connection to this company if they don't have any riders and their bikes aren't that great? Like, what makes you like them?
Oh, well, as a customer,
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't understand how they, other than the fact that they're
well, you
cheaper.
you do have kids out there, and I don't want to disrespect the kids that are spending their hard-earned money on brands like that because they like the color.
Oh yeah.
They like some little thing about the spec. They like the oil slick
Okay,
hubs.
that's fair. That's a
I
good.
mean, sometimes it's kids are 15, they just got into riding, they're 14. They don't care about all this little insider stuff that we think is such a big deal. They just think that that color of bike looks rad. And I can't come down on them because when I was a kid, I liked some pretty goofy bikes. I remember
Yeah.
liking this bike, this Bridgestone BMX bike, and they didn't really have any kind of team program or anything going on. It was anodized blue and chrome, and it just looked sick, and I liked it. And you're just a kid, so if the bike looks cool, and why wouldn't the bike look cool? These brands are making their bikes look exactly like all the most popular brands.
It's true.
I'm one of the people I think that works with my team of graphics people and spec people to do the best line of bikes we can. And then next year, we just see those bikes.
Yeah.
So some brands are just sitting back and doing very little work and just basically cherry picking the best looking bikes from all the other brands and then just incorporating that colorway into their line.
That's an interesting concept.
So oh, look at that fit. Like one really popular bike we had years ago was sort of a trans teal color, and it had some gold anodized parts on it, and then you just see this colorway like popping up.
Yeah. I mean, the oil slick thing is the perfect example of that because you had oil slick blew up, and then all of a sudden in Walmart you'd see fake oil slick bikes.
Right.
Yeah, it makes total sense. I hadn't even thought about it that way.
So I don't know, for a kid, and sometimes these kids get hung up on the riders, the customers, especially the ones that are sort of new to the sport. They get really hung up on weird stuff. I mean, I had one guy recently that was so angry that some Fit Complete bikes had A headsets on them, and not every single bike had a, Campanolo style hidden set. I mean, I'm not kidding you. I mean, F this, F that. The guy was bent out of shape about the A headset. But I don't know how long, you've been around, but the A headset was like a huge improvement over what we all grew up riding. We grew up riding a 1-inch
Yeah.
threaded steer tube fork with a regular threaded, bear trap style headset.
Yeah.
And when the A headset came out in the early 90s, it was like groundbreaking. It was threadless. The cups, the steer tube was 1.125 inches, so the fork was stronger.
Yeah.
It was unreal. The stem clamped on.
Right.
It didn't have the shaft in it.
Yeah. I've been waiting for an opportunity to say, but asking how long I've been around. My first ever complete bike was a Fit Team Complete from 2006.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's right when we probably started completes in 2005.
Yeah, it was. It had a freewheel on it, 36 tooth sprocket.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a great bike. It lasted a really long time and it never broke. But that is a good point. And you talking about how good those headsets were as an innovation. John Courts, Work BMX, guy who used to make frames for S&M, or not S&M, FBM. He put a press-in cup headset on the bike he rides right now because he says it's stronger and better. So it's like the ones that come on a complete bike might not be of the same level as that, but if the dude who's building frames for his job is putting one in his bike.
No, that headset works really, really well. The only issue with the A headsets are the press-in cup style, like John put on his bike. The only issue with that is if the fork does bend a tiny bit and that bottom cup moves a tiny bit, so your top cup and your bottom cup are no longer parallel, that bottom cup kind of shifts a little bit. Now you're going to have a tight spot and a loose spot when you spin your bars.
Yeah.
That's the biggest issue. Or that bottom cup could actually crack,
Okay.
which would happen a lot too. If you had a low quality cup or you had a low quality fork that bent easily, bottom cup would move or the bottom cup would break. But here's the funny thing about that style of headset. I could ride that headset to this day, like all of us could. We probably wouldn't have any problems at all because forks are so much better, and the headset cup material would be a lot better.
Yeah.
When we started moving away from it, we were the first BMX company to take it to the hidden set, and we were the first company to put that on a frame. And when I first did it, it was on a personal bike for myself. It was a race bike. And I remember the team riders telling me at the time that it was the grossest thing they'd ever seen. It looked like a Coke can. It was disgusting. They hated it.
Wow.
They hated it because they loved their A headset, Chris King A headset. Nobody wanted to get away from the Chris King A headset. So even some of the brands like T1, like there were some holdout brands that didn't want to switch to the campy style hidden set that we switched to.
Yeah.
And even our own team riders didn't like it.
That's so crazy. I mean, I think it's just the case with anything new when it comes out.
But here's the crazy thing about it. My shop manager at the time was a mountain biker, and he ran the machine shop. And he had that on a bike. And that headset was invented by an Italian guy named Pinarello. And then Campy made it and licensed the idea from him. And then road bikes went that way. So basically, the bearing, the cup, the whole thing, it was hidden up inside the head tube. Which is pretty sweet for us because now the bottom cup isn't going to move and the bottom cup isn't going to crack. So you're never going to get the tight spot. And because the cup was tapered and the internal part of the head tube was tapered, that cup, as it drew itself together, would always stay centered. It could even move a tiny bit, and the top one maybe could move a tiny bit, but they would always stay parallel to one another. So
I
you
see.
spun the bars, say you did a bar spin, like you did one of your ice pick stalls and you're in the middle of like a half an hour bar spins.
Yeah.
It would never get tight. It would just keep spinning. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the funny thing, though, is that nowadays what's happened is on the complete bike end of things, that particular head tube, the hidden set head tube, where all the 45-degree machining is done on the inside, the inner diameter, that thing has to be turned on a lathe. So it has to be CNC machined.
Right.
An A headset head tube, where the cups press in, that piece of material is straight off the rack. So they just take a piece of tubing off the rack, cut it, weld it to the frame. It doesn't require any internal machining or external machining. So it doesn't need to be put on a CNC lathe. It can come off the rack, get cut, put on the bike. So to make that jump to the A headset style where you have to machine the inside, which is really tricky on the lathe, you got to have the boring bar in there, and you have to machine the outside diameter as well. That costs like an extra $12 in Taiwan to machine the head tube. Not because people always say, oh, the headsets, they're pretty much the same price. It's not an issue of the headset price. It's machining the head tube. When you add that much cost, by the time it gets to retail, you're talking $30.
Right.
So if you have a $329 bike and you're trying to get it out for $299, where are you gonna? All you have to do is put an A headset on it, and now it's $299, and no kid is ever gonna need the hidden set.
Right.
They think they do, but they don't. They're never gonna have a problem with the A headset. And what would be the problem?
Yeah. For that level of what that bike's going to be used for, yeah.
You're not gonna have a problem with the A headset unless you bend the steer tube of the fork. And we don't make a bike under the Fit brand that doesn't have a chromoly steer tube. Not one single bike. 12-inch, all the way to 29-inch, everything has a chromoly steer tube on the fork.
Nice.
So we don't make just a straight, mild steel or high tensile steel steer tube. They're all chromoly. So the steer tube's not going to bend. Maybe the fork leg bends, but that's not going to affect your headset.
Yeah.
So people think they need the hidden set now, and 20 years ago, the pro riders didn't want the hidden set. So it's so crazy sometimes.
Yeah, it's interesting concept.
And a lot of times it's like people come out with great ideas, and it all depends on who brings them out. If the wrong person brings them out at the wrong time, then people think it's the dumbest thing ever. And then a different person brings out the same thing in a different time, it's the best thing ever.
Or the wrong company does something first and it's not cool, but then the right company does it and it's the coolest thing ever.
That's what I meant to say. I mean, that's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, that exists fully in BMX.
Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this. I got lost in the vortex of A headsets, but I can tell you right now that the A headset was a huge improvement over a 1-inch threaded headset, and then the hidden set's good too, but not everybody needs it.
Yeah. I mean, when you're talking about a kid who's just gonna be riding a bike around town, or doing basic stuff as they're learning, you get it makes sense.
I mean, when you had the Fit team back in 06,
it was integrated.
Did it have one-piece cranks?
No, it was 3-piece pinch bolt cranks.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that bike was like the tier above anything that would be one piece or like not full chromoly bars or forks.
Yeah.
That
well,
bike.
Even the chromoly thing, like even your cheapest BMX bike from a core brand nowadays comes with a high tensile steel parts. High tensile steel parts are a huge upgrade from mild steel, which is what I grew up riding, and chromoly is steel.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if people they see steel and they think, oh my god, like this bike's gonna fold up like a beach chair, but chromoly is steel.
Yeah, the point I make whenever I make videos about recommending people to buy bikes is that if you have any plans of doing like real BMX riding and keeping this bike for a long period of time, you want to at least go for the bike that's full chromoly everything, because that is the one that's just going to last you the longest, and then you can choose your upgrade path rather than if you buy something lesser you are forced into upgrading.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, you spend $600 on a full chromo complete right now, you're golden.
Mm-hmm. For a while too.
Yeah, I mean, I could ride the thing.
Yep. I
don't know if you noticed, but we recently started working with Scott Town.
Yeah, I saw that.
From Michigan, and he had a lot of stuff to choose from when he came to work for us, and he got a Fit TRL complete, and
yep.
I think he swapped maybe the bars and the grips. He definitely swapped a few things for feel, just for his personal preference. But he's riding a TRL complete bike, right out of the box.
Yeah, I saw his Facebook post about that, and he seemed genuinely stoked on the fact that he had everything to choose from, but that is what he chose and wanted to ride.
Yeah, I think that's sweet that you can do that.
Yeah, it says something, and the fact that exists is great, and I think it all can exist. Did you say something about, maybe it was somebody else saying something about how it could be a cool thing to see like base level, S&M bike at a place where someone could, or fit at a place where someone could get it, kind of like the Mongoose model. Like you can buy a Mongoose at Walmart, then you can buy a full chromoly Mongoose. What do you think about that concept of things?
Buy the full chromo.
Like a kid can start on a cheap, Walmart bike that they're just riding around in circles as their first bike ever, and then end up on a full chromoly, sealed bearing, double walled rims version made by the same company.
I mean, it'd be getting new kids riding. It would be is always good.
Yeah.
My biggest fear especially when we started making complete bikes with fit, because that was one of the biggest things that made fit different from S&M. I mean, we already had S&M from 87 to 99.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we need to start another brand?
Yeah.
Part of it was that we could import stuff like complete bikes. S&M just isn't about that.
Right.
S&M is just domestic, American made stuff. So part of having another brand was, we could import bikes. But once we kind of got over that, and I did my initial trip over to Taiwan with, I actually went over with Stu Dawkins and Stefan Prantel, and they were starting Federal and We the People, and then we were starting Fit all at the same time. And I went with both those guys. But where my mind was I didn't want to make a complete bike that gave you a bad experience. Like I didn't want kids waking up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night thinking about, their pedal snapping off or whatever.
Right.
I wanted that entry level bike, even if it was going to be, $300. I wanted the entry level bike to be relatively solid, so their first experience was good. And that's where a lot of these factors start coming into play. I mean, if you go down to the Walmart level, even if materials are good, the way that bike gets built at Walmart is going to really jeopardize the way that it rides from the get-go.
It's not safe.
At the Walmart here, all the bikes are outside in the snow.
Nice.
Every day.
Yeah, it's just not safe.
They're just sitting out there covered in snow every single day. The forks are on backwards.
Yeah.
They're just built poorly, right? So it doesn't matter if the frame's chromoly.
Yeah.
The fork is on backwards. It doesn't matter. So that's a big problem. And then the other thing about it is, if the kid has a terrible, terrible experience with the bike, either because Walmart doesn't know how to build it properly or because he doesn't know how to build it properly and he buys it mail order and it comes in a box, it doesn't matter what we put on the bike, it's going to be a terrible experience. So you've got to get the bike built properly from the get-go. And then no matter how well the bike's built from the onset, it's going to have to get worked on again in the first couple of weeks. I mean, you're talking about single walled rims on the front, at least. Even on like mid-level bikes, the front wheel is going to be single walled, right? So you're going to have to go in after like a week or so and tighten all the spokes and true the wheel. You have to.
Yeah.
And people don't know how to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you buy it at a bike shop, you can take it into the bike shop, and I would like to think that anyone that was a fit dealer would know how to true a wheel, and I know they can, and they will. They'll help you. Now your wheels are going to last for a long time. But you missed that one critical tightening a week in, 2 weeks in, and your wheels they're done.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a good thought there. For why?
So you buy your bike at Walmart. It doesn't matter. You could have the best double walled, welded and pin seam rim. It doesn't matter if you don't true that thing after a couple of weeks. The wheel's going to go south on you, and then that's a done deal. So you need people there to help you work on the bike, unless you can learn how to work on it yourself.
Yep. Powers.
So the Walmart thing, that just an inexperienced retailer is a recipe for disaster, no matter how well the bike is spec'd. And then riders just need to learn how to work on their bikes. And maybe, Stu Johnson had some great ideas the other day about bikes coming with, more instruction on how to work on them, maybe even a few entry-level tools, maybe even like a couple of inner tubes.
Yeah.
Just so that first experience is a good one, and you don't just put the bike down and get into something else.
Yeah, I'd say that's definitely a good thing. Powers.
Or like another example on these completes is like some of our bikes have a loose ball hub on the front, and like the same guy that's losing it about the hidden set on the $300 complete or whatever, he's the same kind of guy that's losing it about the loose ball hub. But in all honesty, what is wrong with the loose ball front hub? Like, I rode professionally on a loose ball front hub and one-piece cranks at one point.
Yeah.
What's wrong with a loose ball front hub?
For who the bike is for, I don't think anything.
But I mean, are you going underwater on your bike?
Yeah. Well, I've just seen loose ball hubs like seize up on people who were riding them when they bought a bike that had that at the skate park.
Well, what causes it to seize up is probably that it's not adjusted properly.
Yeah, it's just one of those things of like that bike at that level is who that's made for versus somebody who's, gonna be jumping 10 feet in the air is, I think, a little bit different.
Yeah, again, if you don't know how to work on your bike, you probably need your bike to be as just bulletproof and dummy proof as possible, you
Yeah.
know? But if you can work on your bike, you can make all this stuff work for you. But I mean, I don't know how we went down this road with the bike, but
It's okay.
I just these people get real worked up about the spec on these bikes, and you're trying to make the cost of entry into the sport more affordable, and there's not many places on the bike nowadays where you can save money.
Yeah, it's tough, especially as things are going. I mean, I was also going to ask about too, from your perspective and what you do, where do things stand today as far as being compared to before COVID?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, before COVID, things were, pretty level, and then COVID was a really weird time. And now I feel like after COVID, we're all kind of, it's like that, it's like a COVID hangover. A lot of weird stuff happened in the bike business. The retailers, like we said, stocked up on a bunch of weird stuff. Now they have to sell it. Brands have a lot of inventory. I feel like during COVID, people went out and rode.
Mm-hmm.
Dads kind of reconnected with their kids. They started riding together. And then once COVID ended and a lot of their sort of cush work remotely jobs just evaporated, turned back into either come into the office or you don't have a job kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Then the bikes sort of went in the backyard or in the garage, and now the kids are back in school. Parents are struggling to make ends meet, and all of a sudden that sort of COVID era, which was like, horrible and a dream at the same time. I mean, people are, getting sick, and we're losing, friends and family members to COVID, but then you've got people out having like the best time of their lives as well. Now it's just like a huge reality check is what I think has happened. And I think there's just a lot of bikes rusting away in backyards probably.
Yeah, a lot of people talk about the comparisons between how insane sales and everything were during COVID compared to now. But I wonder about how things are compared to before COVID even happened. Like, are we above where we were? Are we below where we were as far as sales and interest goes?
I don't know. I'm kind of always just in the now, just dealing with what's happening now. But that is a really interesting question. I would like to think that maybe some new people got exposed to riding
Yeah.
during COVID. It seems like pump tracks, public, parks. It seemed like a lot of stuff got built. I know around here there's a couple of Indian reservations that built skate parks during COVID, and they're really good. I'm assuming that kind of stuff happened all over the place. I know,
Yeah.
Dave King and Clint Reynolds and all these guys and the Hallahans, guys that are in the business of building pump tracks and building trails for, cities and counties. They seem like they've been busy.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of stuff that's being
So
built.
maybe people got real stoked on riding during COVID, and then all these things started getting built. So I don't know. Maybe we're back to kind of just where we were before COVID as far as people riding, but maybe the groundwork has been laid
Yeah.
for like things really growing
I,
going forward. It's just, are people going to be riding 20-inch bikes, or are they going to be riding 26-inch bikes, or are they going to be riding Stasics?
yeah, I that could be it too. I'm just here in Ohio. I know that Ray's had an influence on these things, but there's a pump track built pretty much in Ray's parking lot, and then there's a whole bike park that was built 10 minutes away that it's going to get more people into riding in general for sure.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah,
imagine that's happened a lot of places.
I mean, I always loved going to Rays, but it was in the winter. So, but yeah, when the weather's nice and you're in Ohio, you don't really want to be indoors.
Right.
You've already been indoors for 5 months.
Yep. Yep. So there's,
Nice,
go ahead.
nice to come outside.
Yeah, and so because of Rays and just the world in general moving more towards cycling, I feel there are just so many places that have been built, and you hear about it all the time. So I can only imagine more and more people will start riding, whatever it might be.
Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, so that's good, one positive takeaway from it all. But yeah, as far as business, I'm not sure. I would imagine it's probably down a little bit for on the brand side just because of the inventory issues. But on the actual end user side, it's probably at the same level as it was pre-COVID, or maybe even up a bit.
Yeah, let's hope. I,
Yeah.
there's a lot of gloom and doom because of how much inventory people have and how horrible things are. But I hope that it's still at the very least better than where it was before all that craziness.
Yeah, and like we were saying, I mean, you just got to keep the business side of it and the riding side of it if you can. If you're in the business, for those of us that are, you got to keep them separate. Otherwise, it'll just take the fun out of it, you know?
Yeah, fully. That's
That's why I love these new S&M videos, the Colorado one you watched, and then the Built Different that comes out this weekend. I mean, no, there's no gloom and doom there.
no. I watched both of them. I watched Built Different probably little like between I don't know 5 days ago, so it wasn't the final cut yet, but it is just nothing but people stoked on riding
Yeah.
and just insane riding. There's so much crazy stuff in that video. And then the Colorado one, I mean, we were talking a little bit before this. I just think that there needs to be more videos like that in BMX. You see the trip videos and you see the raw cuts from those, and those get some of the personality in it. But this Colorado one, maybe it was because Stu was making it, it takes that another step further to where you really get the personality. And a great example of that is the REA, seeing his personality in there where you haven't really got to talk with, hear him talk or hear from him like that before. It's like, oh, this kid is even cooler than you really thought just based on his riding.
Yeah, no, I love that. And getting it on film is not easy with writers, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Stu's just really good at it.
Yeah, I
I
I
mean,
could
I
see
I
that.
love the prop stuff, and that has a real props feel to me.
Oh yeah, I mean, I will admit I haven't seen as much as I should have of those videos, but from what I have seen, it's the feel of it. Like that feel is captured in there, but I think maybe the props feel is more of just the really capturing what's happening and the people who were there talking about what was happening at the same time. I think that's at its bare what it is.
Yeah. No, there's definitely a feel to it that's very props asking. You know, it makes sense because Stu was he was such a big part of props.
Yeah, and just the community aspect of those things. You can have your edit with just riding in it. And the way I like to do things is I'll make that edit with just riding in it and make it, all the hammers to music and the conventional style video. But then I'll also have the longer cut of it, like the Corn Hucket Jam. I had the highlights, which were like 8 minutes, and then I made a literal hour and 15-minute long movie from the weekend.
Yeah. No, I love that. Some people don't want to see all the camaraderie.
Right, and
I
that's
don't
why they
care.
get
Some people just want to see the tricks.
right. So you got the edit for those people, and then for anyone who, because it all can exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, what's the point of everyone putting out the exact same thing?
There isn't one.
And there's so many. I mean, the guys that are out there that are just melting your brain with the writing. Not everybody's, you can't. Not everyone can compete with that on that level anyway. So I like the idea that different projects speak to different people, and you've just got something different to watch when you want to, if you're gearing up to do some big move and you want to watch this, like this section, you watch that section. It's
Yep.
like putting music on when you go ride. You can put on a different type of music when you're going to do a different type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But you put in that Colorado vacation video, and you just want to get in the van with the dudes
Mm-hmm.
and go on a trip.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Uh,
definitely
and
it.
and what's cool about that is that anybody can do that.
Yeah, a lot of people. That's what a lot of people do these days with so many jams and events going on so far everywhere. You get a
Yeah,
you get a few dudes in a vehicle and you just go.
yeah. And this is we were talking about 1990, how the business was like really slow in 1990. Uh, Stuff like this happens when the business takes a turn sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
People, they refocus on what it is that they actually love about the bike business and being in it in the first place, and then it just reminds them of why they were doing it. When you're wrapped up in the day to day and you're just chasing your tail trying to keep up with everything that's happening, and it's just, you're just taking on more and more and more and more stuff all the time, you could lose sight of like why you're even doing it. So it's nice sometimes to take a breather and
Yep.
refocus. And I feel like there's just some of that going on right now.
Yeah, fully. Red's BMX said, "Load the van up and bring back shop stops."
I love the shop stops. They're super fun to do. Even in the 80s, that was a big deal. Shops would load up with their quarter pipe trailer and go to shops. And yeah, I'd love to see that come back.
Yeah, man. I don't mean to completely take away from the shop thing, but speaking on you were talking about the 90s and how BMX was, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on if you think BMX in its current state, as far as how people say it's not doing well and all that crap, if there's a comparable time in history to what we're going through now.
Yeah, I think it was the late 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just around the time I started S&M in 87, there were tons and tons of brands, some super weird ones. I
Mm.
mean, Hanter, General, uh, I could go on and on and on. There were so many weird people in the BMX business, and shops were telling me, it was dead. The magazine I worked at went out of business. Pretty much everybody went out of business except for, the real core companies. And then everything just sort of reset itself in the early 90s, and then it turned into more of the 20-inch biking world that we know today. It feels very similar to that, and I don't think there's been another time in the last 35 years that has felt sort of like that.
So what would
I
you
would say late 80s kind of felt like this.
and obviously things went out of it, and BMX is very cyclical in how it has its peaks and its valleys. What would you say took us out of that time back then?
Well, yeah, in the late mid 80s, everything was very, freestyle and race. So both sides, leathers, jerseys, a lot of parents involved, tons and tons of like, competitions with overall awards at the end of the year and number plates. It was all that kind of stuff. There wasn't a whole lot of like, there was no such thing as street riding. There really wasn't dirt jumping the way we know it now. It was just very structured freestyle and racing competitions. That was kind of the vibe. And then all that kind of went out the window. And when the 90s, when things first started, kind of building up again with brands like S&M and Standard came in, Hoffman came in, it was more about the riders running the show.
Okay.
People were riding street. They were, wooden skate parks were starting to happen, that kind of thing. It was more free and loose. People were doing what they wanted to do. It wasn't as structured. And I think that's when it started to feel the way it feels now. It didn't feel like that in the mid 80s.
Interesting. That's
It's from an industry standpoint. I mean, a lot of riders, we were out doing that stuff. That's kind of how S&M even started up, because we were out. We weren't really the best racers, and we clearly weren't freestylers. So we were just kind of dirt jumpers, street riders, and there was no one doing that. There was no company that, embodied that version of bike riding. And then we kind of got into that, and I think like now that's what we all kind of do.
yeah, that's that's an interesting way to hear about it. So having said all that, what do you think drives us out of the time we're in now to better
Well, I
times?
mean, I just, you have to scale back. Everybody has to readjust. You don't have the Canadian, Australian, European complete bike money anymore. So you got
Mm-hmm.
to scale back, and it's going to look different for everybody than it has, but it's going to be just back to the basics. You're not, we can't sponsor 200 people.
Right.
We've been trying for years. I mean, the amount of bikes and the amount of product we give out to people and ship to people, it's astounding, man. I'm telling you, there's probably 100 people, a
Wow.
hundred riders on the S&M and Fit free product list.
Jeez. Yeah,
It's
that's
so
hard to sustain.
it's so crazy. I mean, it's crazy, and we've been trying to like just keep it together. So you don't want to tell a dude you've been giving free stuff to for a few years that you can't give them free stuff. I mean, there's nothing worse than that. It's always great when you're hooking someone up for the first time, but how do you tell them you can't?
Yeah, that's rough. So basically, we haven't had that reset quite yet. Like we're going into the reset right now.
I think so. I think the reset's 2023. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because I talked with I noticed at Swamp Fest Ronnie and Robbie were sitting together, so we did a little like talk about the current state of things.
Oh, I saw that. I
Yeah,
call that I call that sock fest,
yeah, their lawn party.
because the three of you guys were sitting in like a dog
Yeah, it was
enclosure,
yeah, it was a dog
and
fence
none of
thing.
you guys had shoes on.
Yeah,
It was like the sock fest summit.
yeah, it
You and
was.
Morales and Bonner. Yeah, I watched that thing. That was pretty funny to watch, to be honest.
Or Robbie said some similar stuff in there, just in that about 2022 being the survival year. Now I
Yeah.
think we're extending that into 2023, and we're really
Well, I
gonna.
probably just yeah, I probably just held on a little longer. I mean, me and Robbie have worked together a lot through the years. I mean, geez, Fit from '99 to 2009.
Hmm.
And then we'd been friends, since we were kids before that. So we think similarly about a lot of things. And I mean, we kind of came up in the same era,
Yeah.
and Ronnie too. I mean, I was friends with Ronnie when I was 16, and Ronnie started UGP at the same time I started S&M. So I've known those guys for a long time, and we all think we probably think along the same lines in a lot of ways. I mean, we're all career BMX guys, so we
Yep.
deal with the same issues. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were saying a similar thing. I
Yeah.
probably would have been saying the same stuff if I was there. I would have been wearing shoes, but I probably would have been saying similar stuff. But
Yep.
yeah, but again, I mean, we get ourselves into these situations.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, we'll get ourselves out of it too
Yeah, I mean,
eventually.
I'm always the first guy to jump on the opportunity to help out someone that's coming up that's like ripping, and I
Hmm.
get this every single day.
Yeah, I
Every
bet.
every day it's you got to check this out. It's a DM, it's an email, it's a text message. You got to check out this dude. You have to hook up this dude every day. And they are all that good. Like
Yeah.
every dude is that good, and not all dudes, girls too. You got to check out this chick or this dude. How can we sponsor like 1,000 people?
Yeah. I mean, that's the that's it. You can't.
You can't. But
Yeah.
every single day, it's you got to check out this dude, and it's not just me. It's everyone that works at S&M or Fit, or it's even the riders, like the guys we already hook up. Now they have a dude that you got to hook up.
Mm-hmm.
You got to hook up this dude. And between all the brands, you just mentioned Ronnie and Robbie, so Colt, Sabrosa, Zach at Kink, myself, whatever other brands are out there.
All of them, yeah.
We're all doing it.
And
But
everybody's
we're hooking
getting the
up so
same
many
messages.
people, there's almost no one left to buy anything.
Yeah, and everybody gets those same messages every single day.
And they probably go around and around, like, they'll hit up someone first, and if they don't bite, then they probably hit up someone else, and like someone's dead set on getting that person hooked up with somebody.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man.
And then eventually they probably are going to get hooked up. Like, it's just it's maddening, man. It's mind blowing. It's like, and then if you say no, you're crazy. Like, oh, I just can't afford to hook up another person. And they're like, oh my God, do you see what he just did?
Yeah.
Yep, I saw what he just did, but I already have like 20 dudes that do that.
So what in your mind is the single most important factor in deciding to help somebody out like that?
I mean, in my old age, I would say I just got to meet these people. I got to know them. I'd like to hang out with them. I'm getting a little burnt on the like, oh, this person's, the best ever. And then you hook them up and maybe they're not.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a good judge of character, at least the people. If I feel like I need to meet them personally. It's crazy, but I feel like that's where we're at because I've had a lot of guys representing me through the years. In 35 years, I've had a lot of guys that were kind of in that role where I put them out there on my behalf to represent what we're doing as a brand.
Yep.
And maybe their idea of someone's personality is different than mine. And then when that middleman's gone, then things kind of can unravel a bit. So I think it would be smart for me to meet everybody personally, but that's going to limit the amount of people that you can help out.
Right.
How am I going to help out a guy from, Cleveland if I'm not going to be in Cleveland for a year?
Yeah, it's a great point.
And he's not coming out west for a year.
Right.
So then you got to rely on a dealer, a friend, another team rider, someone in the area to vouch for them. And sometimes the best people will vouch for someone and the person will turn out to be a total shithead.
Right. Yeah, it's
which is
tough.
And then they're dumbfounded. Like your solid person that vouched for them is just dumbfounded.
Yeah.
And they say, I never saw that coming. Like, well, I mean, like, how could you? Like, I don't know.
Yeah. Well.
So I don't know that at this point, it's kind of like, man, I don't think like we just can't afford to. We got to do more with the people we have. We can't even think about new people.
Yeah, totally understandable too.
Which is the worst because then someone's going to come up that's just so sick and you're going to be like, oh my God, we got to hook them up.
Well, and
it never ends, man.
That's the passionate and the love for BMX inside you, though, that is like, man, I just love it so much and I can see it in this person and I want to help them.
Oh, totally. You're like, man, I got to, like, how rad would it be if that dude just had like the shield on right now,
Yeah.
Or that guy was on Fit. It just, it's hard. It's hard to say no.
I have a question that I think is a pretty fun one that goes along these lines. So let me make sure I read it and get it right. Okay. So is there a rider or which rider throughout the years that you were totally unsure about helping out, but worked out the best or paid off the most and turned out to be like the best choice ever?
Hoder.
Is it?
Yeah.
You weren't sure in the beginning?
Do you remember the beginning?
No, this is why this is why I'm learning here.
Oh yeah. No, Hoder. Absolutely. There's no question. Yeah, he was on Sunday for a little bit and then I think he sold his bikes.
Oh, oops.
Yeah.
That's
nobody in their right mind wanted to touch Hoder with a 10-foot seat post.
That's so crazy.
I kind of didn't. Even when one of my guys came to me, and it was a bike shop in Seattle, and then it was our rep Adam that worked in the office with me. He's the one that brought that idea to me, and I remember mentioning it to a couple people. I think one of them actually was Morales at the time, and they just were like, like no way in the world. And I don't want to throw Robbie under the bus for that one necessarily. I think it was him, but it might not have been him. But somebody told me, like, man, that dude is nothing but trouble. And then I kind of dug into it, and I thought, oh, geez, he's a wreck.
Yeah.
But, I mean, you saw the clips. I mean,
he's got some of the best clips that have ever happened.
Just pre S&M, you know, like whatever that Bean video was, or the Facade video, like you saw that stuff. It was unreal.
Yeah, he's incredible still to this day.
It was unreal, yeah. But he was a total liability, like just a huge loose cannon. But then in my mind, I thought, man, McMurray was the same way.
Yeah.
Troy McMurray was the same way. You know, people were like, oh, you know, there was those stories that he just smashed the window out in Davenport at Standard and stole all their stuff. And remember, I don't know if you remember all that. It's probably before your time, but
it is. There
was this rumor that he had like smashed the window at Standard and stole all this stuff. I don't think that happened, but everybody was talking about it, and nobody wanted to touch him either. But he was just so rad. And McKinney went to bat for him. We were like, we got to hook this dude up. And that went really, really good too, actually. And now it's funny. Now he's kind of back in the fold, and I see him all the time and ride with them, and we're helping out, you know, that Reclamation, making some products for them. And,
okay.
And, you know, and his girls are coming down here and playing with our girls, and, you know, everything's good. But yeah, he was another one that was like a loose cannon. I've got a history of taking on the loose cannon, you know. Tony Cardona, like, you're a Midwestern guy. Tony Cardona was like a Midwestern. I mean, he's a legend in Illinois.
Yeah, I'll admit I'm not as well read as I should be, because
he was like a scrap guy, or the pit. He rode at the pit, you know, in Rockford.
Yeah.
And grew up. He won that Jomo Pro.
Okay, I've heard of that.
Yeah, he won the Jomo Pro one year. You know, he was like a full brake pad dude.
Nice. I've heard his name.
Yeah. No, he was an indoor skate park dude. And then, yeah, he went to PA and then went to Austin and became like this brakeless core dude. But he was another one that was like, oh, if people have already been on FBM and that didn't work out good, it's like, how can you not pull off riding for FBM?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you get kicked off FBM.
Yeah.
What do you got to do to get kicked off FBM, honestly?
It's got to be serious.
Be convicted of murder.
Yeah, manslaughter.
Like premeditated, first-degree murder.
Yeah, for real.
FBM, but yeah, the one that worked out the best out of all the loose cannons and all the risky propositions, Hoder, for sure.
That's so cool to hear, and he seems like such an awesome person when you see in the videos today, and like his grips. Everybody loves his grips. Everybody loves his frame.
Yeah, I haven't been ordering a whole bunch of stuff lately for inventory. I mean, we make, you know, we always have a hard time keeping up with making stuff.
Yeah.
But as far as ordering products that come from other suppliers, I have not been ordering very much lately, but I did order like thousands of black Hoder grips the other day.
Yeah, they're a grip that everybody seems to love, and Hoder's just one of those, like, I think people like characters, and Hoder is a character just by being himself, and that is what's awesome.
Oh yeah. Yeah, Hoder's, just spent a week with them out here. It's hysterical. I mean, and he's just ripping. You know, he goes to the park, it's just a totally different vibe. Yeah, I love Hoder. And he's a good dude. But, you know, like all of us, he's had his problems, you know, and he's had to learn how to deal with whatever, you know, psychological issues were troubling him or whatever, or you know, like addiction issues, and he's like gotten over all that or is dealing with all that, and is like a really solid stand-up dude, and he's got like loyalty, you know. That's a guy that like go to bat for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. You know, he could be somewhere and people could just be talking all kinds of poo about me and S&M and fit and whatever. And, you know, he's not going to jump in there and, he's just going to say, hey, I don't know, man. Like they've been good to me and I got nothing bad to say about them. And I know that's how he would handle it. And that stuff goes a long way. You know,
Yep.
we all work really hard at what we do. And then to just be getting like bashed all the time is like, it gets like for some people it's a little much.
It's exhausting for sure.
It's exhausting. Yeah, it's nice to have a hoder out there that you know's got your back and is going to tell people, you may have heard that, but that's not really been my experience. You know?
Yeah. Right. Or that's not the full story.
That's not the whole story.
Yeah. Yep. Another one here, rapid fire. Is there a standout best-selling S&M frame of all time?
I mean, I think the best-selling frame of all time is probably a Fit Aiken frame.
Oh, I have one of those.
Yeah, there's a few different versions, series of Aiken frames, but I would, because back in the early days of S&M from 87 to 97 or 87 to 2000, so 13 years we didn't make our own frames. We had them made.
Oh, okay.
So it's hard to remember like any one particular. S&M would change models a lot. We'd always move on to something else, but I feel like by the time we were making that Aiken frame with Fit after like in the early 2000s, right from the beginning of Fit, I feel like that was being made in our shop and we were just making them nonstop.
Yeah, well, I mean, Aiken, he just took over the world at that time.
Never really seen anything like that since.
No, you don't.
We haven't. No.
I wonder, is there anything that has really happened like that since in BMX?
I mean, think about it from the riding style to like the style of dress.
Yep.
He changed. I feel like he changed everything.
Yeah, wholeheartedly agree to that.
And it wasn't just trails. It was everything. It was parks. It was wood parks, concrete parks, street,
Yep.
trails. It was everything. And the kid raced too before that,
Yeah, everybody just wanted to be Aiken.
Oh yeah, we had Mikey Fakins. There were guys that we actually had names for because they were so obviously trying to be,
Mm-hmm.
Mikey Aiken. It was Mikey Fakin.
That's so good.
There were so many of them in that era, but yeah, I don't know if we've seen anything like that. I'm not sure. I mean, Edwin was on Fit too back then, and man, he changed things a lot too.
Yeah, he's another one of those iconic riders from like a different lens than Aiken.
Yeah, totally different scene, but turned it upside down.
Mm-hmm.
As far as street riding went.
Yeah.
Like very, very skate like I know he wasn't probably even following skating, but I think inadvertently just by doing what he was doing, it was very skatish.
That's interesting.
That's the feel I always got. Like, a lot of ledge stuff and manual stuff and a lot of that stuff that he was doing then, people are still trying to do now.
Yeah.
So he was very influential, and he was on Fit, that squad too. But yeah, long story longer to answer that question, I would say Aiken's probably the one dude probably had the biggest, or the frame. It was which frame do we make the most of? Yeah, I'm gonna say it was the Aiken frame.
Yeah. Somebody said that, or from just the S&M side, the BTM maybe, because you've been making it for so long.
Oh yeah, definitely. Either BTM or ATF.
Yeah, I always had a thing with the BTM because those are my initials. I'm like, oh, that's my God, what?
Wow, I didn't. What's the middle name?
Should I make you guess?
Thomas.
There you go. See,
No.
Easy.
What's the official name of the show here? Is there a name of the show?
I just call it Talking BMX.
Oh, because I think you should call it More BMX.
Listen, do we have to go here?
Yeah.
I bought that domain.
Oh, you did?
Okay.
That's a good name.
Well, that's officially it. You've revealed it to the world. This show is now called More BMX.
Did we just rename the show just
I
now?
mean, officially, it was gonna happen eventually, but I didn't know
Oh, I had
when.
no idea.
Yeah, well, you did it for me, so thanks.
Wow.
I'm
No, I
gonna.
was thinking about that today. When I was a kid, we had a sponsored rider in our town in California. His name was Daryl Moore, and he
Mm,
rode for this. I can't remember the name of the company. Procraft, I think, was the bike company.
okay.
And first big ad he ever had was more air, more style, more BMX.
Yeah.
And it just, I was thinking about that. I was like, I don't know what the show's called, but it should be called More BMX.
Well, that's it. That's what it's gonna be from now on because I was gonna do that anyway, and you just did it
All
without
right.
even knowing.
I like the questions too. Who else we got down there?
In the chat,
Yeah, we got anybody coming after me? Anybody
nobody,
tearing me a new one?
nobody coming after you at all. Powers was in here for a while.
Dad?
Yeah, I'm assuming it was Chad. And then there was a couple questions I was gonna rapid fire at you. Somebody asked if you would ever sponsor racers again.
Yes, I would. We recently sold a bike to to some top racer. I don't know if they want me to even say that.
Cool.
I would. Racing's a weird one. Racing's kind of expensive. You know, you get one of those elite, they call them elite guys now.
Mm-hmm.
We called them double A pros back in my day. But those entry fees every weekend can be $300, you know, a weekend. And these guys race all the time. So you're talking about entry fees, travel.
Sure.
On that kind of deal, it'd be a little pricey. But yeah, I've actually had a few people. The big race was in Tulsa last week, the USA
Yep.
brands, and some people were asking me, you know, why we didn't have a tent there. Like, man, it's expensive to be there, but yes, I would consider
Well,
sponsoring somebody if it all worked out right.
there's that. Somebody asked how tall Hoder is.
I think he's 6'6".
That's what somebody said. He looks 6'6".
Yeah.
So there was that one. I was on the phone earlier with Charlie, and he told me to ask you how it was getting clips for the full length, especially because you're coming off of recovering from full out hip replacement surgery. So that's a big deal.
Well, it wasn't like I did one hip replacement, then a few years later I did another hip replacement, and then a year later I did a full shoulder rebuild. That was 2 years ago. That was actually way more intense than the hip replacements.
Okay.
And then last year I went over the bars at a race and I broke my hand, and so my most recent surgery was my hand. I had a bunch of pins in my hand, but I got those yanked out, you know, like I don't know, 8 months ago or something. So I wasn't really recovering from anything. Just I didn't really go out. What I should have done was film with Stu when Stu was here for the party, and I should have gone out and actually done some stuff. Like there's a few things I could have definitely done. I didn't do that because I was just busy, like partying with everybody, and I
Yeah.
never got around to it. So then I had a buddy in town that has a Red camera and films hockey for the NHL, and I had him come down to the trails one day, and I just did a few little tabletops, but I didn't really film for it. I kind
Okay.
of wish I would have, but I didn't. But I'm trying to like stretch this out. You know, like I'm on about a 1 year run of not being in some kind of cast or
Mm-hmm.
walker. So I'm trying to just like stretch it out. So maybe I'll just gear up for the 40-year video.
Yeah. Well, from what was in that video, I was stoked on it. You had some good jumping clips, and the only thing that I didn't see was a bar spin. That was it.
Yeah, that's what I should have done. Actually, I really should have just done the bar spin over that first set. I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Next time.
Yeah. Oh well.
Either way, though, to talk more about the video, just because I don't know if people fully know about it yet because it's happening so fast. The video is available Saturday, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Saturday. Like there is
Yeah.
a brand new full-length S&M video coming out Saturday. It's called Built
Yeah.
Different. Charlie edited it, and you guys talked a little bit about how their clips was sourced from all over the place to make it a better result than having to send one person around the entire country.
Bingo.
And it's good. I watched the whole thing. What are you? What's your thoughts on it?
I love it. It's a fun watch. It's got really good writing in it. It's got a pretty diverse, collection of like diverse set of writers. I mean, there's all kinds of writing in it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's right up there with, every other full-length S&M video ever. I mean, uh, and the fact that Charlie's got it done is just mind-blowing, because not all my video experiences have been like this.
Really?
No, I mean, we think about S&M and Fit through the years, how many full-length videos we've put out.
A lot.
We've put out a lot, yeah, and every one of them is like it can get very dramatic, like the process of it.
Oh yeah.
Videos push everybody to the edge. Like, it pushes the squad, all the writers, the TM or the filmer or whatever. It just pushes everyone to the brink every single time. Like, whenever there's like a big, fallout, or there's a bunch of static, it's usually surrounding a big video project, because there's so much emotion that goes into these things, that when they're finally done, it's kind of like, then all hell breaks loose.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think everything from the riding to how well rounded it was edited and put together, you don't have too much of one thing in a row, to the title. The title, I think it's got the makings of everything coming together to make a video that people really, really get stoked on.
No, I agree. And it's interesting. It's like, the way we make our products is different.
Mm-hmm.
They're built different, right in house there. No one's doing that. The way the video was put together was built different. It all kind of makes sense. I mean, and I don't know if that's probably what Charlie's thinking with the title. I know he came up with it, or the guys all came up with it. I wasn't too involved in the title, but it actually makes a whole lot of sense. And this is one of those projects that got done relatively quickly as far as like full-length videos go, and it hasn't had all of the drama and the BS of like a lot of other full-length videos through the years. And I think that's because people are out doing their own thing, sort of on their own, with their own guys filming. And you're a rider, you know what it's like. The guy's coming to town for a week, and you've got to get like everything that you want to get in the video done this week.
Yeah.
The day one, you roll your ankle.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go. Like, you still got to go. You got to go to the spot. You got to get your stuff. And by the end of it, you're like, I mean, you could be. There's only one Van Homan in the world.
Right. Yeah.
Not everybody, like, they're not all Van Homans.
Yeah, man. It's a high pressure kind of deal, and it's definitely something that people don't take lightly when they're having a video part, and they really take it serious, and they want to put their 100% all into it.
Yeah. No, I know. And if you don't, or something goes sideways, I mean, you got to hear people talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, to speak on that, like Hoder in the last one, how he got hurt, and he didn't get to have. I mean, I think that's how it was. The one where he crashed going over the bridge thing. Mm-hmm. Didn't he have a shorter-ish section at that point?
That was when he clipped the bridge in Austin and got out of it relatively easy. That could have been way worse.
Oh, he could have died.
Yeah, he really could have. But yeah, he messed up his knee, I think.
Yeah.
Or shoulder.
And
I know his shoulder was bugging him, but I mean, he's been around for a long time now. You just can't get that section every single time. Like, it's just, like I said, there's only one Van Homan. It's like very difficult to get that section every single time.
Right, exactly. And he definitely came through with a banger of a section this time.
Yeah, which is impressive for lots of reasons. I mean, you got the injuries, I mean, he's not a teenager,
Right, right.
you
Uh,
know.
One thing I wanted to bring up about this video, holy crap, we just hit 100 people in here. Uh,
Nice.
one thing I wanted to bring up about the video is Dan's banger. We're not going to say what it was, but Dan's banger literally had me like, what the hell?
Yeah. I think it's interesting. Everyone's got their own guy or their own clip in the
Mm-hmm.
video. Like I've heard that same thing, but about 3 or 4 different clips
Nice.
from different writers
Yeah, I
in the
mean, it makes
last week.
sense.
I think it's really interesting. Like everybody's got something that
Oh no.
different styles of writing going on in this video.
Yeah, it's so awesome, and I just wanted to talk about that for
Yeah.
what it deserves, because this whole video is fantastic. Charlie did an awesome job, and it's worth the watch. It's gonna be digital download.
Digital download. There is going to be a DVD, but that'll probably be a few weeks out.
Okay, nice.
So yeah, digital download Saturday, I think the 3rd. There's going to be some shop premieres that
Yep.
people are doing.
The wheel mill.
Not a whole lot of them because we kind of sprung it on people last minute, you know.
Yeah.
But um, yeah, Dan, DGAF Dan is one of those kind of under the radar writers in a way. He's been around for a really long time.
Yep.
And I've known about him because, he's a Southern California guy, but he's kind of under the radar in a way. But he's been popping up in S&M stuff for a while now, and it's always really badass.
Yeah, he's awesome. Everybody in the video is awesome. I mean, seeing REA in there, going from a few years ago when I first met him out there to seeing where he's at now, and like coming off of learning how to do most of what he does in his freaking like driveway yard thing that was there, and just all that. There's going to be a premiere at the Wheel Mill if anybody who's local watching this wants to go out to see that.
Is that Saturday night?
Yeah, Saturday at 7 p.m.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that'll be a good one.
I don't. Do you know if anybody like from S&M's going out to that?
I mean, I think the Hallahans would be there.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, Potosny will be there, both of them.
Doyle.
Doyle.
Doyle will be there probably.
I mean, yeah. What about Clint? What do you think about Clint's section in the video?
When that tractor got out and had the thing,
Yeah, that was like one of my favorite parts in
I
there.
was like, well, at first it was really, really high, and I was like, no way. and then it went down to a little bit more reasonable, and I was like, all right, I think I know what he's gonna do. And then he doesn't do exactly what I thought and does what he
Yeah,
does, and it was just like,
exactly.
damn.
Yeah. Well, what about you? Remember Clint's clip of the Fufanu on the van?
Yes.
On the top of the bull. Like, what got you more stoked, the Fufanu or Hoder hanging out of the driver's side window?
I don't think it would have been what it was without either. Like, it has to have both to be what it was.
Right.
Because
That's how I feel about it too. I'm like, either one of them on their own. The Fufanu probably, obviously is probably more of it, but I just feel like Hoder being in the window just pushes it over the edge.
well, it's just the personality of it, man. You get a personal connection to something like that, and you're just like, I don't cuss very much on theirs, but you're just like, fuck yes.
Yeah. And I love that, like, kind of like unusual pairing of those two dudes, like even in this Coloradical video. Because Clint's got a tight knit crew of dudes that he would normally roll with. Nutter and Matty and
Yeah.
Ever and all his guys, and they're all kind of similar in a way. And I'm not sure that Hoder and Clint wind up on a trip unless we put them on a trip.
Probably not. And they're from two very, very far away areas.
Right. But then what's crazy is Hoder can ride the trails.
Yeah.
And then they complement each other, and it ends up being like the funniest, best combo of dudes.
Yeah.
But I'm just not sure that would ever happen if we didn't, say like, oh, Hoder's coming to your house, and then pretty soon he's hanging out of the van when he's doing the foop on the back of the van, and it's just like, It's classic.
Yeah, so rad.
I love that shit. I like it when sometimes people are like maybe even a little uncomfortable at first. Like we've done that over the years. We kind of put people together that maybe
Oh yeah.
maybe it's a little uncomfortable at
Mm-hmm.
first, but then a lot of times they wind up being like lifelong friends, or just create like epic moments on video.
Yeah. Yeah, that's just, I mean, that's BMX. Our best friends we meet through riding could be totally different types of people, but we love them because we love riding with them. And then you might be totally different, but you got this one thing.
Yeah, no, I know. I like that too, and I like the fact that the S&M squad isn't. It's not a cookie cutter squad. I mean,
No.
you got all kinds of unique individuals, and for me, that's kind of always been what I like about S&M is just I like people that ride their own way, have fun, they do it on their terms, and it's not you can't just say like, oh, that guy's an you could say yeah, that guy's an S&M rider, but it's probably because he's just like unlike anybody else.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Like in that way, like Behringer is just such a classic S&M rider.
Yeah, absolutely. I yeah, fully agree with that. That's how I look at things with my own stuff. Is like I'm gonna do exactly what I want to do, exactly when I want to do it, no matter what anybody says about it.
Yeah.
It's the way it should be. That's just the way BMX should be in general.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, I agree.
Uh, Damn it, what was I gonna say? Oh, you can't talk about the video without talking about Chris Child's part too. His
Yeah.
part is another hammer.
Yeah, I love Chris Child's writing. I mean, as kind of, as an East Coast guy, he really wasn't always on my radar a lot back in the day, but I remember knowing about him, and then at that first Texas Toast, or not the first one, the second one maybe,
Mm-hmm.
when he won do you remember when he won the comp? I mean, and this was like Anderson and Reynolds, like, all a lot of big names, and Chris won the comp. I remember just being blown away, and he was doing it with like a combo of sort of modern moves, but also like just some old school flair. Like just a big wild knack or a
Mm.
one-footed X, like a turn down X up, or just weird old school,
Yeah.
nothings, and just shit like that. So to wind up to have him wind up on S&M eventually is like super cool. And yeah, I love that part.
Yeah, he's just full freestyle. I mean, in its core.
Yeah,
Ever.
no, and he's doing a little bit. He can do everything.
Yep. That's. I mean, how many people? There's not very many people on S&M that I would say can't do just about everything.
Yeah, no,
Most
that's a
of them
good
can.
point. I mean, I think, yeah, I think everybody's pretty well rounded. And that's hard to do too, because like a lot of the street stuff is pretty, like the consequences, when it goes wrong can be pretty it can be pretty bad. So I don't know. I feel like as guys get older too, they're riding, maybe they start flowing the park more. Like, even Hoder, you're seeing them in the park, like flying around the park.
Flying, huge transfers. Bitting those
Yeah.
hips gigantic in that Colorado video.
Yeah, no, I know. And I was at those parks, and you know how video is. Things never look quite as gnarly on video as they are in person.
Everything looks slower on video for sure.
Yeah. There's that clip. There's one clip in particular in that video where Cole Volker airs off that little bank into the swimming pool.
Yeah.
That in real life is it's a nail biter. I mean, just sitting there watching it, I was nervous just watching it happen. But on video, it looks like nothing.
Yeah, that was the thing about that was that REA was talking about how crazy that was, and then it
Yeah.
showed the clip, and I was like, well, that didn't look that bad.
No, it is. Trust me.
I believe it. I
Yeah, and some stuff is like that, and we didn't. I don't think we did second angle. We only had one camera. Maybe another angle would have caught it better. Um,
It's one of those things. You don't always get to capture exactly the best thing to show what is happening. It's
right.
just doesn't work out.
Yeah, I mean, but so yeah, I don't know. That particular clip was gnarly in person. It was like death defying, but on video it didn't really come through. But it is just one of those things, you know.
Yeah. Oh, here's a really great quick answer question. Who's been on S&M the longest?
Oh wow. Well, what constitutes being on S&M?
I would say at least, getting help with a frame.
Um, Fids.
Oh my God, Fids. Fids is awesome. Fids is
Yeah, I mean,
so
I think
awesome.
Fids has been on since and riding nonstop the whole time since
Yeah.
probably '93.
Yeah. I remember we were on a trip to Louisville and we stayed in Leland's house, and we didn't know Fizz was there at the time. So Leland wasn't there. He was away. So we just went in and were making ourselves at home. And then Fizz comes in and we were just like, what? And then we ended up watching the Vans Bowl Jam on TV. And I have never seen someone go to a skate park and just captivate people the way that Fitz did. He had all of the kids around him just stoked, and he hadn't even been riding really yet. It was like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't know what you're doing, but everybody loves you. I don't know if it's the accent, but he's just
Yeah.
awesome.
No, I know. He's a character
Yeah, really good dude too.
and just a ripper.
Yeah, been
But
killing
yeah,
it.
that's 93, 94. I mean, and then after that, probably Behringer
Yeah.
got to be in there, like late 90s. You know, there's a thing, a section in the S&M book. Do you have the S&M book?
Uh-uh.
I gotta send you a book.
I
I'll
appreciate
send
that.
you a book.
I'd appreciate
Um,
that.
there's a section in there about like a team breakdown, and
Oh,
this
okay.
would have been up until about 5 years ago. So it would have been like it wouldn't be including some of the guys that have gotten on the last 5 years, but there's a timeline of riders.
Oh, that's so sick. So you
Yeah,
could
so it shows
definitively.
all the guys, and then when they got in, when they got on, when they got off. And if I remember right, Behringer and Fitz have the longest, bar. But like I don't know if you're familiar like with Jason Ball, who runs the machine shop, makes all the bikes at S&M and Fit.
Mm-mm.
He's been basically a sponsored S&M rider and has worked there with me longer than anybody. And that goes all the way back to probably 95, 94. I think he moved out from Colorado when he was 18. And I think that was in like, um, oh, look what I got.
Oh,
This is,
look, the actual book right there with
yeah.
the timeline.
So I got the book with the timeline
We can
right
find
here.
out right now.
And it looks like people that go all the way to the end, it's Fids 94 to present. And then probably we got Matt Behringer 2000 to present.
Wow.
Yeah,
So
so Fids by far,
Fids
by a long
is
shot.
6 years more. Wow.
But yeah, Fids 94 to present, and then Hoder 2010, Hucker 2012, Reynolds 12, Matty Aquazap Nutter 12, 12, Passero 13, Charlie 13. So a lot of like 2010 to 13 till present. But yeah,
So
looks like Fids takes the award on that one. But
go
so
Fids.
Jason Ball's been a sponsored S&M rider, probably since 94, 95 also. He's just
Wow.
kind of under the radar, riding sheep hills after work and running our shop. But yeah, he's kind of been working with me longer than anybody since, like I said, like almost 30 years.
That's awesome. It sounded like,
Unsung hero back there running that place.
yeah, it sounds like it if you're there that long.
Yeah, and he's always been super tight with Fids and Leland and all those guys. So, whenever they'd come to town to ride Harleys or whatever, he always hangs out with those guys. Kind of part of that crew.
Yeah. It sounds like from that time period you listed off there, there's about to be a perfect scenario for a 10-year anniversary video from at least a few different people.
Wow, I didn't even think about that.
Charlie, Craig, 12 was Hoder.
Yeah, well, Hoder's at 12 years. Looks like the 10-year guys are Hucker, Reynolds, and yeah, Maddie and Nutter. Those are all the 10-year guys. Wow, I can't believe that's been 10 years. That is wild.
And then in 2023, Charlie and Craig, and
Yep.
you could do a whole entire full length video based on just 10-year anniversaries.
That is wild, man. Yeah, I never even time flies, I guess.
Yeah, it does. Somebody asked about talking about Craig Passero, and they asked if he has a section in the video. He does, and he does all of the crazy stuff that you expect.
Yeah. Well, he got a lot of I mean, he got hurt filming for this
Oh, okay.
and has been hurt for a while now. But
Oh,
I
that
think
sucks.
he's just healing up now.
He is one of the most technical, fast moving, like he can do things in a period of time that shouldn't really be doable in that period of time.
Yeah. How do you feel as far as like his influence on the way people ride now?
It's gotta, I mean, whether it's noticed or recognized, it's gotta be there because he's been riding this way and the way people do now for a long time.
Yeah. But he kind of stays out of he stays out of like the the regular spotlight because he's
Mm.
out there working his regular job, riding, doing his thing. I feel like if he was riding and doing that kind of stuff and he lived in Southern California, I feel like it would just be an absolute household name.
Oh, I would fully agree with that. It's just the reality of it because the level of the stuff he's doing was so. I mean, people are just now catching up to how complex the things. I mean, obviously, aside from someone like Garrett Reynolds, like that, the name that comes to mind is that Johnny Rakis.
Hmm.
He is the only other person I can think of who can do stuff off the top of my head that is as fast as what Craig's doing things.
Yeah, that's got that crazy balance.
That too, and he's just tossing stuff in that doesn't make any sense where he's doing it.
Yeah. No, I know. And to even be kind of in that conversation with Garrett, it just I just feel like he's kind of underground.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. He
And
is.
to be around as long as he has been to still be kind of like an underground sort of a phenomenon like that, I mean, but I think he likes it that way.
Well, and it's a testament to the fact that you can. I mean, where does he live?
I mean, I think he's in like New York, sort of Buffalo area.
Yeah,
Or maybe he's in Long Island. He might be on Long Island actually.
it's a testament that you can be at a level like that and stay in BMX and really keep pushing it for a really long period of time without having to go somewhere else to where BMX is currently
Yeah.
happening.
Well, yeah, it's funny. I can't tell you the name of the exact name of the town he's in.
Yeah, I mean, we always when you see his clips, you can tell that he's not, in Southern California on all
Now,
of
I'm
those
gonna say he's
spots.
on Long Island actually.
Somebody will correct us later.
Yeah. Where are you at, by the way? Are you in Cleveland?
I'm an hour south of Cleveland.
Okay.
The what's that?
What's the name of the town?
I'm between a city called Worcester and a little town called Apple Creek, where the trails that I ride are at.
Yeah, I thought that was, really funny that I had the Dodge Skate Park membership card.
Which it's so crazy to think about that because you go there now and it's just, an open park for anybody to be able to go to. And you hear all the stories about how bad the
Yeah.
housing areas right there by that park were. I mean, I heard stories about people literally getting robbed at the stoplight to leave the park.
Yeah, it was like, back in the 90s, it was like Dodge, and then, I think Florida had the Bro Bowl. I don't know if you
Yeah,
ever remember hearing Bro Bowl was kind of the same scenario.
I heard that too. We were actually in Tampa when they were redoing the Bro Bowl because we were looking for somewhere to ride, and I was reading about how sketchy it could be, but then saw that they were just redoing it.
Yeah. No, we would ride Columbus. I feel like in the '90s or '80s even, yeah, in the '80s, we were in Ohio all the time. There were races in there were races all over Columbus, Dayton. There were up in geez, all over the place in Ohio. And then yeah, I ended up staying there a lot in the late '80s because I had that girlfriend that lived there, and I kind of used it as a home base because it was so central to like
Right.
going to Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky, down to Louisville, even Florida. I mean, it was like Ohio is a great place to be to get all around the like eastern part of the United States.
Yeah, it's pretty centrally located, and that's why kind of like why I like where I live too, is because all of the highways around are within 40 minutes, 30 minutes, so you can get to the highway and then go to somewhere. It's
Yeah,
very, all the roads seem to like lead to the town where I live, and I don't know.
yeah. There's always been a big Ohio, like uh, crew of guys around S&M. Back in the day, we had like Stevenson and McHugh, guys that were doing sales and purchasing. They were all from Toledo.
Mm.
We just spent so much time in Ohio. They became friends with all these guys, even Levan and all, Leland and all the guys in Kentucky.
Right, so close.
Yeah, we made a lot of. I always made a lot of friends in that area in the late '80s, and took friends, for life, really. And S&M always kind of had like a scene, like an Ohio, Kentucky kind of scene happening, because of all these guys that we got to be friends with through the years. So it's a weird Midwestern connection with that, with what people think about as a Southern California brand.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. And uh, one of my buddies growing up, he's 10 years older than me, and he treated me like a little brother. He would pick me up from school, take me to my house, grab my bike to go to the trails, and just stuff like that. He still only rides S&M bikes, and I remember him getting the LAF, then the LTF, then the whatever the progression of that
Yeah.
was, and he's still riding his ATF today. And uh, one of my other buddies, Trevor, I don't know if you would have ever seen him online. He was riding a War Pig until maybe it was no Sabbath. He was riding a Sabbath until probably 4 years ago, and he's only 20 something.
Wow. That's a
Yeah.
that's a crazy bike to be riding.
Oh, and he had it decked out, front brakes, and it was cool. He does some really awesome stuff. He did a huge Canadian nose pick on a sub wall on that bike, and it was just when he would jump out of it, it was like a wrecking ball coming down.
That bike was short, super like overbuilt. That was
Yeah.
McKinney's bike, and he was an odd, rider in that he rode flatland and vert.
Mm, yeah.
He rode vert on that tiny little bike. I think it had like maybe an 18-inch top tube.
Well, that's part of why my buddy rides it, because he rides flatland. He'll ride vert when you can, but he rides park, and he'll ride it to trails. He'll do everything. It's cool.
Yeah, that progression of the alphabet soup, the HAF, ATF, all that. It started with the heavy as fuck.
Yeah. Okay.
That was like our answer to Standard's lengthy or shorty.
Okay.
When Standard came out in '93, they built this like very overbuilt standing platform style bike. It was like the frame was probably 8 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And so we built a similar bike because there were people that wanted that style of frame. And we just called it the heavy as fuck because you picked up the frame and that's all you could say. Like, there was no other name that made sense other than this bike is as heavy as fuck.
What about
So,
go
so
ahead.
then as things started to change, then people wanted a light bike. So then we made the light as fuck
Yeah.
later. And that became the LAF, and then that got even lighter, and that was the lighter than fuck.
Yeah.
And I don't know where we're at now. Now we're with the ATF. That's the all-terrain frame. So
Yeah.
the acronym, the alphabet soup has continued, but the whole thing started, I believe, with the heavy as fuck.
That's so rad. I was around when the LAF first came out, but I
Yeah.
didn't know about the HAF.
So what was your buddy's name again? That was kind of like your mentor, like who brought you up?
We call him Big JT. His name's Jason Thomas. just a savage on a bike, and I didn't even recognize all the people I grew up riding with were incredible, and this guy was doing like huge Supermans over that 3-foot Woodward box. He's doing giant bar hump airs, and he can do 1-footed tables, literally no footed because of how far they're going, and just incredible back rail foofs.
And he's like a Cleveland guy.
He used to live in Worcester where I live, and then now he lives in Arizona.
Okay, cool. Well, man, get him out here for our next jam in the spring. Arizona's not far from here.
Yeah, I'll tell him. I still have his original set of front brake pitchforks that have the big hex, or not hex, whatever might be a hex compression cap that sticks way out of the fork.
Yeah.
I have those sitting somewhere in a box.
Wow. Yeah, we used to spend a lot of time in Ohio. We always had fun there. Like Toledo is where all those guys were from. Then we had a ton of friends down in Dayton, and I used to ride in Cincinnati a lot at that. There was an indoor park we'd ride in the winter that was called Club Soda.
Heard about it.
That was super fun. There was a little indoor spine ramp thing in Dayton they called the Warehouse. We'd ride street, downtown Dayton, Columbus at the park, and then the race every year in Columbus. Just felt like I was always in Ohio in the late 80s, and then we kept going there back in the early 90s all the way up into the mid 90s. That Dodge membership was 95.
Wow, that's so wild to think about.
What's wild is that I have that. Like, out of every, like, I don't save anything, and I don't have anything, but I have a paper card. It's not even laminated. It's paper. I don't know how it survived since 95, but it has, and it's in my office.
Wow. I mean, that's how we kind of connected for the first time ever, is you brought that up to me, and just crazy to think about how some of that stuff goes.
Yeah. I mean, do you remember Levan's BMX Plus cover from there?
No, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, he's got a full S&M uniform, turned down over the hip at Dodge. Like, after they kind of cleaned it up, painted that yellow stripe around the edge.
Oh, I got it pulled up already.
Jimmy Levan BMX Plus cover from Dodge. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. All right, I gotta bring this in here.
We gotta put that on the screen.
Yeah, that is so freaking cool that is a thing. I mean, they still paint the edges of the ramps like that.
Oh, do they? I haven't been there in years.
We were I just edited a video from when I was there in July, but that park, when you go there and you look at it, I mean, it's kind of crumbling all over the place. The transitions are crazy, but you can find stuff to do there.
Yeah. No, I always liked riding in Ohio. Winter was rough, though. I mean, It's not like here in Colorado where it's sunny and there's snow and you can go, snowboarding or whatever. Ohio was just kind of like cold and gray, and you had to go to the indoor park.
Yep. I think
I've never been an indoor park guy, but man, I would have a lot of fun at that Club Soda, just because you were so glad to be out of the weather and riding your bike.
Yeah. And part of what I love is that Ray's exists, and Ray's is centrally located in the Cleveland area, but it just brings everyone together in the winter, so that there's all these different groups of people from all around the place and even the whole country, and you go to Ray's on a Saturday, and you never know who you're going to see there, and I love that exists.
Is that where it would be the wheel mill where you saw Doyle teaching one of the Hallahans how to do a turn? It was that was a wheel mill, right?
It was a tail whip, and it was the wheel mill.
Oh, it was a tail whip. And who was that? Was that Lucas?
I can't remember which of the Hallahans it was. I remember seeing that.
Yeah, I think it was Lucas. But yeah, that was wheel mill though, right?
Yeah, and the wheel mill's another place. The same kind of deal of just everybody comes together in the winter from all those little, random skate parks around Pittsburgh. And it's just I don't know, it's something that I feel like you might not get necessarily in the Southern California, where nobody has to go to that one spot to even be able to ride.
I like that vibe. I always like that about the Midwest. Whether it's anywhere around there, you're so amped to get a sunny day, even if it's like it could be 30, but
Mm-hmm.
or 20, but it's sunny.
Yeah.
You don't want to hit the ground, but
Yeah.
as long as you're riding, you're fired up. Southern California is weird like that. I've been in Southern California the majority of my life, and man, it's just one 80-degree day after another.
Yeah. You get.
I mean, I'm not complaining about that, but I think people get spoiled.
Yeah. Well, you lose a sense of like how good that really is when that's
I
just
know.
all you know, and you don't have to struggle through walking from your house to the car and having it hurt to breathe.
Yeah. Oh, I know, man.
Um, that reminded me though, in the first Unclicked podcast, you talked about the kind of the, I don't want to say attitude, but the way people in BMX act. Like you're talking about the pot smoking couch. Have
Oh
you
yeah, the Indy couch.
have you noticed any change to that at all since then, or
I mean,
improvement?
people laugh. People that come from that world kind of laugh about it. But it's like scary how real that is.
Oh, it's definitely real. That's why I wondered if, like, since you brought attention to it, if maybe it's gotten better or changed at all.
I mean, it depends on where you are in your life. It's like guys come from wherever and they wind up in Long Beach and they end up on that couch and then they're just in the fog, man. It's never going to be any different. It's always going to be like that for people for a couple years, but they eventually they get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not. I'm just like commenting on something that's been happening for a long, long time.
Oh yeah,
And
always
just in
gonna
BMX,
happen.
it's just too. It's almost like comical how it happens, and it happens in the same town, and it happens like it's just funny, man. Like, uh, but I haven't. I mean, I've had people tell me like that's so spot on, but it also gets a lot of people angry with me.
Mm-hmm.
That
Yeah.
first podcast was, yeah, that I did with Hour. It definitely it got some people upset.
Yeah, it ruffled some feathers, I'm sure, but I felt like it was so much just truth telling that people needed to hear.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just one dude, one knucklehead just blabbing about a bunch of dumb shit that I've seen in the last 35 years of BMX. I mean, people don't need to take what I'm saying seriously. I mean, like I said, you got these fact checkers. Hey, I'm not denying the fact that my memory may not be perfect. I've been riding BMX since 1978 or something.
Right.
I've been knocked out. I can't remember how many times I've been knocked out.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like the joke goes. But uh, my memory might be weird, but the shit happened. Like maybe I'm 2 years off, I'm 3 years off, or maybe one little name is wrong, or something like some detail might be a little bit off, but the general like idea of the thing
Mm-hmm.
definitely happened. You
Right.
know, so I'm not just fully making this shit up. Like this stuff happened to me. I saw it with my own two eyes. Maybe it happened in '98. Didn't happen in '94.
Right.
I mean, who cares?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm just like saying my thing.
I think people just need something to talk about, and at any given period of time, you might be that something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. The more I think about this kind of stuff, it's like it's pretty simple, man. Like we love riding bikes, and there are all these little things that happen to people on their journey through bike riding, and sometimes you wind up in the house, you get stuck in the couch, whatever. That's going to happen. I've been in the couch too.
Yeah.
You got to get out. You got to get off the couch. You get spoiled. Every day's 80 degrees. I think it's good to get out and about and travel. Go to different places, meet different people, ride with different crews of dudes,
Mm-hmm.
and just get a wider, like a bigger version of like what's really going on out there. And
Yeah.
that's what that's what I like to do. Through the years, traveling to all these races and dirt comps, and go to these comps like street comps or park comps to watch or sometimes ride or whatever. But you meet all these different crews of dudes, and you just stay a little more grounded, I think.
Yeah, man. That fully has happened. I mean, when just traveling in general for people who don't ride teaches you about different cultures and shows you what's really going on in other places in the world that you don't see through or experience as much through a screen.
Yeah, no, I know, and it's just weirder than ever nowadays. You've got just the like the DMs and just all the instant stuff that's happening, and you don't really form the relationships with people that you used to when you were like on their couch for a week or you're on a road trip for a few days. And
Right.
so sometimes like in the real world, when you're out with interacting with other people, two people come at each other and maybe they don't get along at first, but then you kind of find some common ground and then you understand each other more, and like they're strong personalities, but they end up being friends. But in today's world, those two strong personalities clash on social media and then it's just over.
Right. Yeah. There's just
Like
no.
it's just over.
When you're face to face with somebody, you're forced to like figure it out. You're either gonna fight, walk away,
Right.
or you're gonna figure it out. And
Well, yeah, and then sometimes you fight and then those end up being some of your best friends.
I mean, everybody who's from the age of people where fighting is how you solved things, like has those friends that they fought,
Yeah.
beat the crap out
Oh,
of each other, and now they're best friends.
I've been in a lot of those fights, man.
Yeah, that's real.
BMX house fights, there's 10 guys in the house and two of you end up fighting over $20. And I remember smashing a dude over the head with a crank arm and
Oh my
blood
God.
everywhere. And by the time it was over, everybody in the house had left. They were so uncomfortable that everyone left. I don't know if they were in the yard or out back on the ramp or whatever, but I ended up sitting on the couch with the dude that I was just fighting over $20, who ended up hitting over the head with the crank arm and had blood everywhere, punched me in the face with a ring, split my face open. We sat on the couch. Guess what he did?
What's that?
He did
Apologize.
$20.
Oh, you get some perspective at that point, I think.
Yeah, but we just fought for 10 minutes
Yep.
and there was blood everywhere.
Yeah.
That's what I had to do to get my $20. Then he just gave it to me. He said, here's your $20.
Yeah, man. That's just the real world.
Well, it used to be the real world.
You know what? You're right. You're definitely right. I have.
Now look at the world we live in now. Like you ended up having, and I commend you for having Doyle on real quick after all that baloney with Ricky and the and the whatever the podcast Ricky did. That was sweet that you had him on right away. Like I think that's cool that you were like, it was really timely. I don't know if you were able to get Doyle on because of that or if you were going to have him on anyway.
I wasn't, but and the whole Ricky thing is what made me reach out to him in the first place, because I figured Doyle's the kind of person that, like, yeah, he likes to, have fun online sometimes, but he also is a very professional person in
Right.
that, and there were some real world implications that could have came from what happened, and people who were thinking they had total misconceptions about what the reality of that situation was. And I'm like, well, maybe if we get on my thing and just clear the air of what reality actually is.
But I mean, how dumb was all that? I mean,
It
really,
was so dumb.
all Ricky needed to say was I don't know like. There's so many guys that he could have put the name. He could have put S&M and this name, or S&M and Fit and this name, and it would have totally made sense. And it has nothing to do with the guy being old. It just has to do with like people that probably shouldn't be sponsored,
Mm-hmm.
and then people that could be, maybe if that money were freed up. But he just got the name mixed up. He got it all a little mixed up, and then everybody gets their panties in a giant bunch over it. And now,
Everybody.
like, the guy's lost his job, which I think is for other things too. But the whole thing is so dumb. It's incredible. Like, he just said the wrong name.
Yeah, literally lives are changing because of that one, not because of it, whatever. There was probably other
Right.
things too, but like you're absolutely right. And it's crazy, and it is a very unfortunate, dumb.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I would hate to be like a kid right now because when I was a kid, I said so much dumb shit. Well, I
Yeah.
still do, but I mean, even more when I was a kid. And a lot of times it's just for the like the comedy factor. You're on like a little rant and it's funny and you've got people laughing. It doesn't matter what
Mm-hmm.
you say. As long as people are laughing, you're like, oh, this is sweet. Everyone's having a good time. But nowadays, that's all being recorded, and
Yeah.
then it pops back up later, and then people are like, oh my God, what did imagine if those cameras would have been rolling like when I was a kid. It would have just like the stuff that was happening was hilarious, but it was so outlandish by today's standards that everybody would just be in trouble all the time.
Yeah, and so I haven't talked fully about this online because like Ricky and I used to do chats a lot, and we used to like he used to have some of those crazy opinions, and I would walk him back like, dude, come on, let's come back a little bit, like can't go too far with it. And then we'd like, we'd reason back and forth with each other and come to that middle ground of whatever. And I think when like because he came with that with an approach of like, I am talking about this stuff and I want to help BMX and all of this, and then you say something with such big shock value, people are going to react to it. And that's like, and it kind of like seeing all of that happen made me feel like I've been doing a good job in what I do, because I try to change things and try to talk about things that might be taboo or might not get talked about that should, but I try to do it in such a thoughtful way that you can't even have a grounds to stand on to be like, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. Well, to me, when Chris Riesenberger is like coming to bat for you and is the voice of reason, you're doing some pretty wild stuff because Reese is like a nutcase.
I don't know
I love the
anything.
guy. Well, it's like Ricky's partner with 15.
Right, I knew that. I just don't know anything about him.
Oh, he's a nut.
Okay.
Like, but in a good way. Like, he's just a psychopath, but in a good way.
Okay.
He was always like Zach's right hand man at kink forever.
Yeah.
Until I think Zach, I don't know, Zach's pretty straight laced and Reese is pretty out there. So they probably just, had some kind of a blow up. But anyway, Reese is a nut and I love him. But
Mm-hmm.
the last time I was in New York, I hung out with Ricky too and Reese. I think we all went to a strip club together and we had a great time. And Ricky's just like, he's just talking a lot and he just says dumb shit sometimes. But I don't know. Like, we live in a pretty sensitive society where
Right.
people get their panties in a wad real easy.
Yep.
And then they just lose it,
And then they try to cancel you over
They
this
try and
one
cancel
thing
you.
that
Like,
you.
I mean, can you imagine like trying to come up right now as a young kid and just getting like the hate? No matter what you do, you're
Yeah.
gonna get hated on by somebody. Like, you can't make everyone happy at the same time, and if you try, your life's just gonna be terrible.
Right, man. I feel very grateful for the fact that I started making YouTube videos at a young age, and this is my beginning YouTube life. It's embarrassing to even talk about, and no one will ever find these videos because they're all privated and happened a long time ago. I used to do
They'll find.
it doesn't exist. Covers, like screamo covers of mid 2000s music. I used to make those on YouTube when I was 14, and
Nice.
and it was nothing but hate in the comments. And so I got I mean, you know how it can be with hate, and you get involved and you start going back and forth with people. I got that out of my system at a young age, so that
Smart.
now when you see things, it's like, oh, I'm just gonna let that go rather than go through the problem of back and forth, wasting my time, and then nothing happens or gets solved anyways.
Yeah. Listen, man, it's out there. People love to hate.
Yep.
And what are you going to do? If you do one thing, they hate on it. You do another thing, you hate on it. That people just want what they want. And if they don't get what they want, it's kind of like, they're like, I have two little girls and now I have two 8-year-old girls. I used to tell BMXers, they were like, acting like little girls. Now I have little girls, and honestly, I feel like telling them they're acting like BMXers.
Yeah.
You know, like they want what they want, and if they don't get it, everything's not, you know, it perfectly in line with what they want or whatever, then they're just going to hate on it. And you know,
Yeah.
you ride different than them, they're going to hate on it. You wear the wrong clothes, they're going to hate on it. The funny thing is they hate on it, and then eventually then they're going to like it, and you
Yep.
know, they're just all over the place. You cannot give a crap about what people are. I mean, you have to be cognizant of like just hurting people's feelings, you know, for no good reason, but a little bit. That's old Chris talking, but you just can't care what these people are saying about you, because you got to do what you're doing, and you got to have fun. And if you're going to let them hate on you, if you're going to let that get under your skin, you're doomed. Like, and this is not business for you. The BMX is not the scene for you.
Right.
You
Yeah.
might as well just ride in private, never share anything, never say anything, never do anything. You've got so many people afraid to show their personality nowadays, because if they just make one little teeny mess up and they look goofy or say one little thing wrong, everybody's gonna just have a shit fit about it.
Yep. And
Everyone's so afraid to do anything or say anything that everyone's just kind of hiding, and you're like, man, there's like no personalities, you know? That's why a hoder comes out and yeah, he's having a good time, and he's not caring what people are going to say, and he's 6'6", and he's going to punch you in the face.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely, man.
No, what are you going to do? Are you going to talk shit about Hoder? No.
Well, how many
Right mind's going to talk shit about Hoder.
and how many people have you encountered or seen that have talked crap on the internet actually did that and followed up with it and talked crap in real life?
Yeah, I don't
Not very many.
I get a lot of shit from a lot of people online, and I see those people out and about sometimes. They never say anything to me, to my face.
Yeah, man, that's the reality of it. I used to catch a lot of real hate, and I had like real hate, not just, you know, oh, you got stupid hair and handlebars, like
No, not Panera Bread skunk hate.
yeah, not like just poking, having fun. Like there was
Hey, I would make fun of those handlebars, but I think we made them.
You did make them.
Yeah. So I can't make, but your hair, I mean, the hair's all you. I mean, look at me. I can't make fun of anyone's hair.
Hey, so my thing is, it's everybody's got to have their gimmick. So I might as well have my gimmick be who I am.
Is the swoop the gimmick?
It's just emo hair from mid 2000s that I never got rid of because I
So
like
when you
it.
make the logo, the More BMX logo, is it going to be like an emoji of your face, and is the hair going to go?
I have an emoji. Speaking of this, and I'm sure, I don't know if there's any people who are like YouTube members in here anymore, but I have an emoji that has my hair on it, a bandana, and the nowhere bars underneath of it.
Dude, you got to run that.
Well,
I
you
mean,
embrace
that's
it.
you.
Yeah, you embrace it, and that's who I am. But one thing I want to say, and I think I saw Melissa walking through the background a couple times. I wanted to commend her for being on YouTube, on the YouTube thing early, like how you talked in the first Unclick podcast about how Fit was trying to do the YouTube thing before anybody like really was doing it, because I've said this too for years that BMX missed an opportunity with YouTube in getting paid by the gigantic corporation that is Google for making BMX videos, regardless of what they might be, just because they hated on a couple people that did it first.
Hey, it's the Rev Share YouTube deal in the early days of with Fit, when we did the making of Stay Fit, the 50 episodes or whatever it was. We were getting paid pretty good on that. Back then, we don't get paid anything now, but we were getting paid pretty good on that. That was exactly like the integrated head tube when we first did the integrated head tube.
Yeah.
You know, everyone hated on it. It was lame. It was the dumbest thing ever. We were idiots, blah, blah, blah. Now everyone's doing it.
Yep. That's exactly it. And that's what I've said forever too. And when you said that in the first podcast that you did with them, I was driving, so I couldn't freak out and clap and everything, but I could have just been like, they got it. They freaking got it. And hearing
now
that,
look at, like even the real bonus, it's like, dudes are making a lot of money on this.
and that's probably somebody said, I don't remember who it was, but somebody called out that that's like why you're seeing so many people sharing crazy videos of their friends now.
Yeah.
Because it gets views.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know if I have a feeling it's like Instagram trying to keep people off TikTok would be my.
That's what it is. Yeah.
That's sort of what I would say about it. But I mean, you got riders making, a couple $100 a month to a couple $1,000 a month right now, and there's no way that's going to last. Like, eventually that's going to change and it'll get taken away. But in the meantime, if you're out making videos anyway, I mean, and you get invited to be a real bonus person, I mean, why not?
Right. That's the whole thing, and that's the way I looked at YouTube from a very early point. It was like, dude, this is literally like, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to sustain myself from BMX as a rider. So like, why not try and build this thing that's getting paid from Google? Like, you're not relying on Joe Schmo buying an S&M frame to pay a salary. It's you're relying on the work you put in get paid from Google. And it was like, why wouldn't? And you could do whatever you want. It's your YouTube.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and you never know. I mean, look at Hucker doing that bar ride around.
That is crazy. Charlie showed me that.
See the views on that?
Yes, Charlie showed me, and I was like, are you freaking serious?
Yeah, so you never know. You never know what it's going to be. And, full circle with like the sponsorship stuff, if you're just out doing it all, having fun with your friends, you're getting a little video of it, you're throwing it on a reel, you're getting this, bonus every month from that. Your sponsors are happy because you're out promoting stuff, you're promoting, riding and whatever brands or, products and companies that you work with. I mean, it just all works together.
Yep.
But again, you have to be able to do stuff because it makes sense for you, and you can't really care if certain people think it's lame.
Yep, that's
the thing. People are always going to think stuff is lame, No
matter what.
There's going to be people that think stuff is lame, and they might be people that are secretly wishing that they were doing it, but they are like too caught up with themselves to like put themselves out there in a way that might be like made fun of.
That's why I felt bad for Colin Verniak after hearing I didn't watch the whole thing, but I saw the post where they were saying how when he was doing the YouTube thing, he had like big name BMX riders and people who were his really close friends dogging on him for what he was doing. I'm like, those aren't your friends, man. If they're like throwing real hate at you for what you're doing to sustain yourself and something that you enjoy, it's like that's not a friend, because a friend supports you no matter what you want to do.
No, there's a lot of jealousy. There's a lot of envy. There's a lot of real things going on with people when they're coming down on you. I mean, why are they so motivated to hate on what you're doing? The other day I watched this little documentary on Pastrana, and people were talking about, they were talking about how the other freestyle motocross riders hated him for so long because they thought he was a big, dork. But then after a while, you just can't. Like he does the 360, he does the double flip. Mm-hmm. Now he's in the race car, and now he's jumping the Triumph or what. You just can't hate on the dude forever, and you never let it bother him. But they were hating on him so bad, and now all those guys, like so many of those guys that were hating on him, are just like, they're just gone. I don't know what they're doing.
They're drinking beer.
He's still doing what he loves doing.
Yep, they're just those guys.
He's putting on the Nitro games, and he's still doing what he loves doing, but he took so much hate for so long. Tony Hawk, same thing. The guy got hated on forever. Some other pro spit in his face one time.
It's crazy. And those people that are doing the hating are just sitting at home drinking beer, watching it unfold in front of them on TV now.
And Tony Hawk and Travis Pastrana are still doing it.
They're the biggest names.
Yeah, it's so sick. But you just cannot listen to these people. Like, they're gonna hate. Everyone hates on things that they just can't do or secretly want to do or
don't understand.
Yeah. Listen, man, I've gotten it over the years too, and I'd say you should fully embrace the swoop and the crazy bar. You guys need any more of those bars, by the way?
Well, Carl's actually Sam, his rider, who's a
Yeah.
welder by trade, is
Yeah.
like they're making them in Nebraska
Oh,
now.
come
A
on.
100% made in Nebraska.
Oh, all right.
It's a cool thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, someone I know was making fun of them the other day, and I said, "Hey, take it easy, man. We made those."
They're
You
good.
know,
I
they're handlebars. It never ends, man. When bars were like when you got your fit team complete, your bars were like 7.5
Yep.
by 26.
I cut them. I have them. They're still
Yeah.
somewhere around, and
What are they? They're like 7 by 26.
and I cut them to 21 and a half. I measured them. They're 21 and a half inches wide.
And there were guys in the Northwest back then, so like early 2000s, there were guys in the Northwest that were running slam bars, like which was 8 by 28, just regular S&M slam bars.
Yeah.
And even our dudes were clowning them.
Wow, man.
They were clowning them.
Wow. My buddy.
Bars were so big, they were clowning them. Our own team riders and other people involved in the company, S&M and Fit more so, were clowning the dudes with the slam bars because they were so big.
That's so crazy.
And then a few years later, 8 by 28 is small.
Right. Very small. My buddy Sponge, I don't know if you'd know who that is or not. Best rider in the universe. Not exaggerating, but he is still riding the slam bars with the 7/8 crossbar on them.
Yeah, the little guy.
Yeah.
Oh no, the big guy. That's the big crossbar.
Yeah, like real big.
Yeah.
It might even been 1 inch. I don't know, but you guys only made them for like
Oh
a
yeah.
short
No, those were called. Those were like grand slams or something.
slam bar specials.
Yeah.
Because
exactly. It had like a 1 inch. It had a 1 inch. It was more like solid bikes had a bar like that too.
Yeah, he had those bars that he bought in '99 from a bike shop here near us, and they were all rusty, and he was complaining about them being too short because he wanted a brake lever. So I found a brand new set of them and bought them for him like 5 years ago, and he's been riding them ever since. And he'll never not ride those bars.
I've never given two shits about stuff like this. Like handlebars, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Like, your bars are little, your bars are big. I don't care.
Yeah.
You got like, grips on them. If you're lucky, they have grips on them. If not, like you got napkins on there, some duct tape. I don't know. As long as you're riding your bike, like who cares if they're big? I've never understood how people have time to care about how big or small your handlebars are. That's just crazy to me.
Well, it just shows that how good of lives people live in like America and wherever people are like really doing that kind of hating, because that means they have time to focus on other people, and they aren't worrying about like, oh, I'm gonna be talking shit on the internet while I need to worry about my next rent payment and where I'm gonna get food from. Like,
yeah,
they got a good life.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And in the grand scheme of things, man, like handlebars, there's been some crazy handlebars over the years.
Yeah, the power bends.
We made the power bend.
Those are crazy.
The power bend was actually like a real bitch to make because putting that little thing on the end like required wasting like 5 inches of material on the end. You had to cut it off.
Oh, yeah.
Those were a bitch to make, but the whole idea was like it put your elbows out.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Put your elbows out.
Yeah.
And then you can like bang into dudes.
Yeah.
But whatever. Like,
yeah.
Hey, for a while, the racers were loving that.
Well, there was a period of time there where I was riding with Hamilton a lot, and he would only ride those.
That makes sense.
But
I
it
could
was like,
see him riding that like on one side.
yeah, I don't know.
I could see Steven with like the power bend on one side and not on the other side.
And it would help something that he's doing, and
Right.
he would just do something completely insane because of it.
You know what though, man? I love that guy. Like, talk about someone that doesn't give a shit about what people think about what he's doing.
Seriously.
And if you look at what people are doing nowadays, and if you look at what he's been doing on his bike for a long, long time, it's kind of all come back. Like he's kind of like very current.
Yeah.
what his riding was like on point with like what is happening.
Yeah, there's a lot of like that, the nose manual up, nose manual down stuff. People, if someone does that today, it's crazy.
Right. No, I always liked what he was doing. He's just always done his own thing, you know. And you hear those stories about him like going on trips without a bike. Like he brings a skateboard, but he doesn't bring a bike, and he's on a bike trip. You know, you hear these crazy stories. I always wonder, like, could this even be real?
Hmm.
Like, is he that? Like, is he that wild?
So here's the thing. Everybody says that and everybody talks about that stuff, but in my experience with him, I mean, I literally was riding with him every other day for like 3 years when I was in school in Columbus. I was at his apartment. We were hanging out after riding, whatever, and I did not have a single weird moment at all. Not a single, not even one. I literally had steak and lobster dinner at his parents' house in Ohio with them. Like,
So is this like a persona that he built himself, or
I,
is it just something that has like gotten turned into like folklore, or what's happened here?
I have absolutely no idea because I can only speak on my experience with him, and I never had weird moments. We always rode, and he literally changed the way I look at riding to where we'd go to spots and we'd be at a spot and he would just like you'd see the conventional idea and then he would think of something totally different or find a board or do
Right.
something, and that morphed the way I think about riding and look at things, and he just, I don't know, he's very influential on me.
That's
And
what I mean. Yeah, he's got like he's got a different take on it, and and this was a long time ago.
yeah.
So yeah, I totally agree. We even sponsored him briefly with S&M over the years.
Oh, I saw it when he had the intricate frame.
Yeah, we gave him the frame, and I don't know. That's one of those deals where I like don't even know what happened. I just know I sent him a box with a bike and a bunch of stuff, and I have no idea what even happened.
He That was about the time period. It was right after we started really riding together because I remember him riding that bike, and that might have been towards the end of when I moved away from Columbus. But yeah, I don't know. He's an enigma and an absolutely incredible rider.
No, I agree. Good skateboarder too.
Yeah, he was always skating. We'd go to spots and he would have stuff he wanted to do, and that was the best part of living in Columbus. I went to Columbus for college, and the best part of it
Yeah.
was riding with Hamilton all the time.
Wow, that's wild. Well, shit, man. I like the whole idea that you can do your thing and get hated on and not worry about it. That takes a lot of I mean, that takes balls nowadays, you know. A lot of kids are sort of like, you know, I know we're not kids obviously, but there's a lot of kids out there maybe even listening that are sort of like deathly afraid of being clowned, especially online, or you know, everybody just pipes up and start. Yeah, I
Hmm.
almost feel bad about the Ricky Montana thing. That's kind of where I was going with that. With um, it's just unfortunate. Like it just doesn't need to be that intense, you know.
Yeah, and people just need something to hate on, and that's kind of the way I viewed things. And I don't know. I do what I do because I just love BMX with every fiber of my being, and I want my
Yeah.
entire life to revolve around BMX, and it does. Like I have a part-time job that is scheduled around me having time to ride and do my videos and be able to go anywhere I want to whenever I need to, and like there's hate there for what I enjoy doing sometimes, but it's not. I think I've done it for so long that people are just like, oh, that's just who he is, and that's, I mean, it sucks that you have to go through the hate to get there, but I think we live in a society now where people preach acceptance so much, and in BMX we have so many people who are just being authentically themselves that it's easier and hard at the same time.
Yeah, I'll tell you this: if Ricky worked for me, like if he worked for you know S&M and Fit, not for Merit, and he said that one thing, but the majority of the podcast that he did was like pretty on the money. I mean, everything I heard made sense. I mean, I think he's kind of going down the BMX as a job thing maybe a little too heavily, but everything he said basically made sense. And
Yeah.
he says that one crazy thing, if he worked for me and he otherwise did a good job at whatever it was that he was employed to do with us, I would have blown it off. I wouldn't have cared. I would have even like supported him publicly. I would have said, yeah, he said something dumb. Like, I've said dumb stuff, and I know everybody else says dumb stuff too. You know, what would be worse than never saying something dumb would be like never saying anything. And I mean, how many dudes do you see out there that rip on a bike and you're like, I don't even really know what that guy thinks about anything. You've never heard him talk. He never says anything. Doesn't appear to have an opinion on anything. Just doesn't want to, like, you know, it's this whole stay in your lane, don't, you know, ruffle any feathers, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. That's fine, I guess. But I also think it's okay to express yourself a little bit. But if he worked for me, I would have let it go. And I would have just said, dude, take it easy. Like, don't say crazy stuff. Think about it a little more, or maybe edit it out.
Yeah.
Like Doyle said, like, if he had stuff in his old podcast and he wasn't feeling good about it, didn't say what he really thought it was supposed to be saying or whatever, he just edited it out. You can edit it out if you want, you know. But I don't think that was the case. And to be honest, I feel like it was almost a little, I don't think it was the right thing to do to let him go from his job and make it look like that was the reason why, you know. I think if there were other issues, then they should have let him go from his job prior to that, or maybe give it like a month to sort of cool down and then let him go. But that's not why the dude lost his job. There's no way.
Yeah, and this is where I think transparency in BMX can kind of be a good thing, in that, like, if you're gonna fire him and you're gonna do it at a time like that, like, maybe it's not a great thing to make a statement about it, but maybe it's necessary, because because now people just think that he lost his job because of one thing he said online. And
that's my point. Like, I think they did that strategically, and I think that was like the wrong thing to do.
Yeah. And maybe they wouldn't make a statement if that was the case, but like the whole Julian Ortega grip thing is a great example of this whole transparency of, like,
I was thinking like, oh man, we're gonna like wrap this up, you know, here pretty
soon.
You gotta bring that up.
I'm
like,
sorry.
That's outlandish, man.
Well, God, I mean, we don't have to talk about it.
Well, I'll just say this about it. Like, if you're really like a pro, okay, a pro rider, I'm not talking about like a dude that just loves to ride and is stoked to get a little flow or get put on a trip or get a little bonus money here and there. But if you're like really a pro, and you don't get on Odyssey, you know, pro, unless you're really a pro, in my opinion. I feel like they're very kind of strict about that. Like, they're pretty good at choosing their dudes. Or Sunday even, you know, any brand out of that building, with Nuno and those guys. But if you're gonna be a pro, you can't say crazy stuff like this, because now the next person thinks you're gonna say crazy stuff about them. You know, like, I remember hearing a really good story about Hucker when Hucker was on DC. And DC kind of unceremoniously cut the whole BMX program like overnight. And a lot of the guys already had contracts like written up, ready to go in and sign them like any day, like good deals. And they're going to go in and sign them any day. And then out of nowhere, boom, they just dropped the whole program.
Yeah.
So a lot of the guys kind of lost their shit publicly and talked a bunch of poo about it. But Hucker didn't. In fact, he thanked them. Just like, hey, it's for whatever reason they had to let us go. That's unfortunate, kind of thing. But I had a great time and I loved it, and I'm really appreciative. Blah blah blah. And then not long after that, Hucker got on Vans.
Yeah.
And no one else did. And I just feel like that's a pro.
Yeah, it's a tough one whenever there's a situation of like, I'm not in Julian's head, but it seemed like it really felt like they kind of took his grip idea and took his name off of it. And like, if I were in that situation, I would feel the need to say at least something.
Oh, you're coming at this from a totally different angle than I thought you were. I was coming at it from he needs to not talk so much poo about people that helped him out for a while. But so you believe the grip thing?
I don't know, because I'm not I'm not in that world, but what it felt like, I mean, Cloud like basically admitted that they messed
Took
up.
the grip.
They basically admitted that they messed up in the grip situation and they tried to make it right. So like I don't know where the truth is, somewhere in between both of what they said, but
That's a tough one, man.
we're
I didn't pay too much attention to the grip angle, but what's the grip at the end of the day? Is it a bunch of fins?
no, it's like a octagon pattern that gets bigger or something. I
Like
don't
an expanding octagon that turns into a bunch of fins?
know because there's a whole bunch of them. I you'd have to see it. It's hard
Oh,
to
I'll check
just
it out.
explain. But the way I looked at it in regards to transparency and things is that like if they really did rip off his idea and take his name off of it and whatever, like I feel like that's the kind of thing that people should talk
Well,
about.
like, get him a chunk of change for that.
Well, that was the thing. They offered him royalties to try and make it right, and I guess I don't know. It
Well,
was
royalties don't make any sense. Like, if he's not going to be a representative of the brand, and if he's not going to be because he's a Sunday guy, right?
well, he was on Eclat Pro and then got dropped,
But
and
Sunday was his bike sponsor.
yeah,
So maybe he finds a home on Odyssey, and he's like a full,
yeah,
like a
full
Rayford kind of a thing, like
full
a full
factory.
Sunday Odyssey Bear Corp dude,
Yep, yep.
And then he goes to the E-Claw and says, "Listen, man, that's my grip. Come on, like, don't bullshit me. That's my grip. Just give me $5,000."
Yeah, it's such a tricky situation, and that would make sense, but like neither of us really know what was said, so you can't like comment too like this is
It shouldn't. But all I'm saying is it shouldn't get aired out like that.
yeah, it's so tough
It
because
is tough. Maybe I gotta apologize for like taking a different stand on that because I wasn't coming at it from that angle. But yeah, that should have got worked out behind closed doors. Like if that was real and he came up with that grip idea and it was like gonna be his thing, but then they drop him because they can't afford the monthly or whatever it is, and he should just be like, look, I'm not gonna get royalties because I'm gonna ride for someone else. And that's going to be confusing, and it's just a bunch of accounting and multiple payments. Just give me $5,000 or give me $8,000 or whatever it is. Just give me the money now, and we'll just call it. And then I won't talk a bunch of poo, and everyone will be good.
right, yeah, and that I mean that would be ideal, right? And
Yeah.
and it sucks that he had to like feel like he had to say something publicly for anything to happen because we all know that if he just let it go, they were going to release that grip. Nothing was ever going to
So
change.
what has come of it? Like, is the grip now shit canned?
I have no idea. I saw a shop promote like posting pictures of it. So
Does the grip exist? Like, did the
that's
sample?
so that's the whole craziest part of this whole thing is that none of this came out until the grip was posted as a like this is the done thing and it's
Yeah,
going
but
out to shops.
is it a like a 3D printed model, or is it a real like Kraton rubber grip out of the mold?
It's a finished product that is
So the
available
mold
for
has been
sale.
made. Is that an
Yeah,
ODI grip?
I don't know.
Well, regardless, if it's ODI grip or a Velo grip or Pro Palm grip made out overseas, it's any of these guys. It's going to be somewhere between $6,000 and $15,000
For the
for
mold, yeah.
and someone's already committed to that and paid for that.
Yep.
So that's a done deal if the grip got made. So if that's the case, it's going to be in E-Claw's best interest to actually produce the grip if it's a good grip. So then they
Right.
got to make him happy for his contribution to it, and then they move forward with it. But I don't feel like it needs. I just don't feel like it needs to turn into this whole public deal because people like me, who are I guess just not paying attention to the details of the situation. I just look at Julian like he's a crazy person. And every time I hear that name, until we had this conversation, I would think like, oh God, I don't want anything to do with that dude. He's a loose cannon, but
Yeah.
maybe he's not. It's just I wouldn't have dug that far into it.
Right, exactly. And that's what
So
sucks.
it's not doing anyone any favors. It makes Claw look bad. It makes him look bad. It kind of makes everybody look bad.
Yeah. And
Would have been better just to like get them some money, unless they feel like, he's full of shit and they designed the grip.
Well, that was the thing, is that he made his post, and I got videos about this if you want to get deeper into
Oh
it.
no, when we're done talking about this, I'm done with this.
Yeah,
But I mean, I'm glad we're talking about it because he is like a, you know, like a respected rider, and he's friends with a lot of people I know, and it is interesting to hear this, especially as a company guy, and I've been in similar situations, and I can tell you right now, there's like three sides to these stories.
exactly, and that's what I said in the videos that I made, is like, there's this guy's side, this company's side, and the truth is somewhere in the middle, and we are never going to know that.
Totally, you're absolutely right. But anyway, is the grip coming out?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, because I saw a bike shop posting pictures of like multiple sets of them in hand.
Yeah. Well, then I guess it comes down to whether or not they were. Yeah, they got that's an ugly situation there.
It was chalked up to they had a freelance designer, and it got put into the full production stage because of discommunication. That's what Declaw said.
Well, then I think they just owe the dude some money and call it a day.
Yeah, that would be, I think, the most ideal situation, and I hope that that's what happened, because Declaw deleted their post about the whole thing that was like 7 pages of text.
Yeah.
And
I mean, royalty on a grip, if he's lucky, he's gonna get like 75 cents a pair if he's lucky. Like
yeah,
that would be really high, you know. I would say, yeah, they're gonna have to sell. He's gonna have to sell 7,000 pairs of grips to get to $5,000 as a royalty. I would say give the guy $5,000, and then he says, "Hey, I got $5,000 for my design. I'm happy." And honestly, like a CAD dude drawing the grip, or some guy with some ideas, maybe would have 10 hours in it, be like $400, you know.
yeah.
He'd be happy with $5,000. I think he'd be happy with $5,000, and I think it'd be worth it to them just to make the situation right, to give them that money at least. But I don't know. That's how I would try and handle it if it went sideways like that.
So my whole thing to take away from that situation and not talk about that anymore was that, like, I think transparency in BMX is important, in that, like, if people, like, say there's a totally malicious ripoff of a product that a rider worked with a company on, and they purposefully got rid of him and put out the product without their name on it, I feel like those kinds of things probably should be talked about, so that riders and company owners and bike shop owners know the reality of how this said company is acting, and because I feel like there's not room for that in BMX, and it's existed forever.
I hear you. Just if it were that cut and dry all the time, that'd be nice, but it's not. So what ends up happening is you get, like, you know, 3-4 guys in a room, maybe everyone they're drinking beers. It's like a whole it's a whole just creative environment. One dude's like, "Oh, we should do this, we should do that," and then this changes and that changes, and then like all these different people are working on it, and then eventually you come up with something, and you're just stoked that you've got like a done deal basically, and you get it to the SolidWorks guy, and he's working on it. And then I've had this happen to me where like someone comes out of the woodwork and they say like, "Hey, 3 years ago I emailed you basically a drawing on a napkin of that."
Yeah.
And maybe they did.
Yeah.
And maybe I saw it, and it was just in the back of my mind somehow. But I don't really remember Napkin Dude 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It's all over the map with this kind of stuff, you know? Like, and I always tell people, like, people will tell me, like, "Well, I got a great idea." Okay, don't tell me about it.
Right, exactly.
You got a great idea, go and have it made.
Mm-hmm.
Go and do it, because I don't want to hear about it. You know? I don't want to get involved in the whole tail end of this.
Yep, that makes.
You really got a great
sense.
idea, go get it made. But 99% of the time, it's no great idea, and it's kind of like, you know, you change the name of your show to More BMX, and then I come at you and tell you that I More BMX.
Yeah, well, I'll send you my GoDaddy receipt from a couple months ago.
All I'm saying is it goes. There's 3 sides to these stories, man, and people should get compensated for their work, but the work needs to be like legit.
Yep.
It
Yeah.
needs to be actual work. You can't just like be drinking beers with some dudes and then say we should make a sick tire, and then we make a sick tire, and then you designed a sick tire.
Yep.
There's more to it than that, like you got it. Everyone needs to work on it. It ain't easy.
Nope. So it's been over 3 hours. What's next? You just finished up the 35-year party and jam and video.
Yeah.
Built Difference coming out Saturday. What is after that?
Well, I mean, we got a lot of stuff in the works, right now. A lot of these like new colorways of Hallahan stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
even Shane, like Hallahan has a squib.
Squib.
Have you seen that squib? That's an American made fit, frame, 20-inch. We got an 18-inch wheeled version too. That just came out.
Nice.
I got a few things I'm working on right now that are a little bit more top secret.
Cool.
But yeah, we've got those other Hallahan colorways of the MOD and the Black Magic frame with forks and bars to match.
Nice.
Trying to sell some seats.
You're not gonna pick up riders for seats?
I don't know, man. Do you know someone that's like just super rad that we got to hook up?
Did you see the meme yet about that quote?
No.
You're gonna have to watch it. I'll send you it. It's that quote from the RBMX thing, and then this dude, he's like, I just woke up, and then he's basically like, I'll ride for 60 seats, Chris. it's it's just funny. No, I don't know.
Well, yeah. So anyway, yeah, we got some new stuff coming out for sure right now. And there's always a lot of good stuff going on.
Yeah.
This video stuff though is definitely the highlight lately.
Yeah, it's cool that you've got. It's cool that you got multiple people, Charlie and Stu, who can really get stuff going, because video is here to stay. It is the future, and it gives you a personality that I think other companies are going to start to like follow in those footsteps and move more towards the personality side of things, because you need more than just really good riding to connect somebody with a person and a product.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's all full circle with the riders. Like if you've got great riders, and we do on S&M and Fit, if there's no real media out there anymore, if you don't have magazines like we used to, you don't have props, you don't, Hours not really doing the kind of stuff that they were doing when they were ride. There's not a lot of original content being created out there. Like your brands are having to create it themselves.
Yep.
So S&M and Fit is creating this content themselves, and that's the only way we're going to actually be able to feature our riders. If we're going to have like 100 dudes getting free products and we're not actually featuring them, and a lot of them aren't really like the kind of guys that want to blow themselves up on social media, they're just like soul riders that love it. We're going to have to feature them.
Yep.
So that content creation is expensive, and
Right.
it doesn't really generate any money. It's like, we're creating content, and then we would have to, if we advertised like with you or anybody else, we would have to pay you guys, and then you guys, the deal is you guys then share the content that we paid to create. It's a crazy scenario right now. So it'd be nice if we could find a way to get paid for that stuff on, like you said, on a like a Google, like a YouTube scenario, but we use all this unlicensed music, so we can't.
Right. You'd have there's libraries that you can subscribe to with music that allow you to monetize, that have some like really good music on them.
Yeah, we'll look into that, and then there's always like the like Vish, making his own music. There's
Yep.
that kind of a. But man, when you see Chris Childs riding to Crazy Train,
Oh, I get it. Sometimes you can't substitute the royalty free, even if it's got good singing and it's a real song. It's just not the same.
yeah. So I don't know. I think that's a big part of our company nowadays. Is not only are we making frames, forks, bars, stems, and sprockets, we're making a lot of content. We have like Charlie and Melissa and Stu and Evan, and we have other people, a lot of other dudes that are contributing now, and we're kind of building our like content creation team. It's just it's not monetized, unfortunately, but it's pretty rad.
I say freaking just post it on your Instagram. From the amount of followers I got after you posted that fake interview, I was like,
Yeah.
what is happening
Hey,
right
people
now?
thought that was real.
Yeah,
Like people thought that was real.
people really did think that was real, and we made it through this whole thing without even talking about any of it.
I made that in like 5 minutes.
It was awesome. It
And the only
was,
reason I made it is because I went back and listened to the interview because Doyle's so good, man.
he's so good.
He's so good. I don't know how you got on that tangent there for a while. But he was looking at you like,
What
I
are
saw
you
the looks on
talking
his
about?
face, kind of like,
I'll tell you where it came from. It came from I was on my way into town talking with Victoria
no,
about Doyle,
trust me.
and then he
Don't,
called me.
let's not get into it again. I totally get the story. It's just crazy that somehow you've got Chris Doyle and you're talking about BMX, and then all of a sudden you're like thinking that Chris Doyle wants to hear about this.
I get it. I'm a silly goose.
It's all right, man. But hey, at least you're like, I'm like poking fun at you, but I mean well. I'm not trying to
Oh,
like hurt your feelings. I just thought you had to think that was funny too.
well, dude, I watched what you did, and then I got embarrassed because I was like, oh no, I really said that to Chris Doyle. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah, I don't know. It was funny though. No harm intended. So hopefully you just laughed at it.
Yeah, well, I don't know if I said this to you or not, but it made me realize with all the chaos going on in the BMX podcast arena at the time that I've been doing this as long as I have, and I've been trying to change things and talk about all this stuff that nobody talks about, and that is the first and only thing that anyone has ever posted from my stuff like that ever. Like, I think I'm doing okay.
Yeah, well, let's change that, man. Let's keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a good job, and I like the timeliness, of getting Doyle on there, and that kind of stuff's cool. It's like I've been going to you for years. It's like, what's going on? Well, find out what the Swoopy Hair's doing. I go over and I check out Swoopy Hair, see what Swoopy Hair's doing.
Yeah, I'm
And
okay
then you've
with it.
got like that. You're like the only place I can go to get actual information on what's happening.
Hey,
Either everyone else has got to step up their game, or man, I'm going Swoopy Hair every time.
listen, I'm doing it for free too.
Are you really?
I mean, I get paid from YouTube itself, but like I can't live off that.
Yeah.
I just do it because I love it, and like I said, I just want BMX to be my whole life.
Yeah. Well, find a way to help companies like mine advertise products that they're trying to sell and monetize it.
We could talk about that. I mean,
Yeah, I mean that's what Fudger should have done the other day. Like, come on, Ryan. We're not when we advertise with our BMX, we're not. It's not charity. Like nobody's trying to give Dig or Our or More BMX or anybody for that matter money just as charity. I mean, if we have it, yeah, we have done that over the years. But as money becomes tighter, you have to be offering like a legitimate service, and it has to help move product to
right.
make it worth money. And then if it does, then it makes sense. I mean, if you look in the Pull BMX magazine, the print magazine, which is like one of the last print magazines for BMX, the USA BMX print magazine, I just signed on for 1 year, full page every month. They do like, I think 9 print issues a year, 9 pages for fit with the complete bikes and all these cool ass ads with like BF and Nasty.
Yeah.
And that's because I have a ton of bikes that are good. I'm trying to expose them to a bunch of people that need good bikes that might not know that we make them. That's why I'm spending money with USA BMX to put that ad in their paper. That's the way it's supposed to work. People advertise a product and then people know about it and possibly buy it.
Yep.
I mean, the same ads have been running for every product in the world on TV for, since the inception of TV.
Yep.
People are paying for those because it helps their products sell. We're not advertising with all these media outlets so that they will then share our content that we already made. Like we'll share it ourselves and then they're going to share it anyway, and they have to share it or they look like they're out of touch.
Yeah.
Like our BMX can't be all hyper and free agent and all this other stuff. Like that can't be the only thing that they're doing. They have to show some core content too, but I don't want to pay them to show our content. I want to pay them so that maybe we do features on like how to work on your bike, but every time we're working on the bike and teaching kids how to work on their bike, we're simultaneously working on like our bike.
Right.
Like it doesn't have to be like super cheesy, but you know, there's a great product, a great advertising opportunity right there because kids can't work on their bikes.
Yep.
So we teach them how to work on their bikes on a little show that's sort of like advertorial. We're paying them money. They're paying to produce it. They're filming it. They're editing it. You know, our guy just sits down with them, shows them how to dial in a gyro. Boom, that's an episode.
Yep.
Then we pay them some money.
Yep.
And then hopefully we sell some gyros because I have 2,000 fucking gyros in stock right now. You know, that's what I'd like to be doing.
Yep. There you
But
go.
I don't want to just give them money every month so they can repost, you know, dirt rules.
Yeah, well, you're about to get 500 messages from YouTube people who are like, "I'll do it."
I mean, we'll see. But anyway, man, I love what you're doing. Keep it up.
I appreciate it, and I appreciate the realness. I appreciate the fact that you're willing to talk to someone like me, you know, who's sort of like a middleman for the industry and like people outside of it.
Can I be totally honest with you right now?
Yeah.
I was hoping to get a handlebar order out of this.
Oh, darn. I'm sorry to disappoint
All
you.
right. All right. On to the next dude.
Well, all right. See you later. No, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks,
Thank
Chris,
you guys.
for your time, and I appreciate everyone and you. And we'll see you maybe later because I might be going live again with Charlie later about the full length.
Go get yourself a Panera Bread.